Hello and welcome to the Actual Tech Media Summit. My name is Jess and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information to cover with you all. Now let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console, and we're going to start with the questions window. If you haven't already said hi, there is a whole giant awesome community of people out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Also keep in mind, if you have any tech issues today, a browser refresh is probably going to fix just about anything, but if those tech gremlins are clinging on, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's summit, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over live chat, we also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentation. And if we do not get to your question during the webinar, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us today will be following up with you after we wrap. All right, next up, there are going to be lots of cool aha brain light up moments on the summit today. And if you want to share those with your community, we love that. We've made it nice and easy. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's summit will automatically be added to your post. And our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection of solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go and explore. And if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout the summit today. Now, I will tell you a little bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be in attendance during the live webinar in order to qualify to win, and we will follow up with all winners after we wrap the summit today. Now, all of our winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. If you're not sure what those are, you can find the full T's and C's in that Handouts tab. Again, just click on the Handouts tab, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all of your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much, we have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. In today's summit, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. The expert speakers and teams will be reviewing all the questions asked after the webinar, which means even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. And if you are a lucky winner here today and you'd like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we will get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have all of you here live with us at the summit today, and we want to keep that good feeling going. So let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter, LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. And if you're looking for more awesome resources and content right after we wrap the summit today, make sure you subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in that Handouts tab, and you will be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar as well. Both you and your coworker could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend, because it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link back in that Handouts tab and fill out the application. The Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you can choose to join in, like surveys, test running new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, chat with great people, and learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply or send the link to a decision maker in your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my all-time favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need all in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. Okay, I have one more exciting resource that I have to tell you all about today. That is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. This is going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology, and yes, by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and again, completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in the handouts tab as well. Okay, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited and ready to dive in, so let's get going. All right, well, hello and welcome to Actual Tech Media's Enterprise IT Virtual Summit. Now, today's topic, Start Now, Discovering the Critical Tools and Services that will define IT through 2030. Now, I want to start by saying a giant thank you to all of you for joining us on the summit today. Now, we have some of the most innovative and leading companies in the industry here to talk to us. You will be chatting with experts from Zerto, Flexential, Rubrik, Nutanix, Cisco, Access Security, CrowdStrike, and Nisuni. And each one of these sessions, each one is going to be full of innovative solutions, hot trends, and creative strategies, all here in one place, because there is so much to talk about when we think about the tools that are going to shape and define IT in the years to come. And what do we know? I mean, it's hard to predict the future, right? But we know that things are changing and that they will continue to change at that rapid pace. Maybe we can guess at directions or kind of specific innovations, but really the only thing that is 100% certain is that things will be innovating and evolving very quickly and definitely continuously. So that makes days like today, conversations like this one, extra important, because we all get to come together, we get to have a nice little chit chat, enjoy some time together, and it allows us to expand our information, our understanding, and stay in touch with these changes as they are happening, as they are coming to the scene. So with that in mind, let's get this day rolling. Now, first of all, I'll reintroduce myself. My name is Jess Steinbach. I'm a moderator here at Actual Tech Media. Now, my friends and fellow moderators, Scott Becker and Keith Ward, will be joining us in just a moment for a keynote chat. But before we jump into that, I said that I would come back to prizes, so let's do a quick little talk about what you can win on the summit today. Now, you do need to be here live and present with us. I will remind you of that a few times throughout the day, as all you repeat audience members know. I will also remind you that the full terms and conditions are linked in your handouts tab, so if you do want to see the full information, head on back over there. Today on the summit, you could win one of two Apple AirPod Max headphones, one of two Apple iPhone 14 Plus phones, one of three Kindle Scribes, and as if that wasn't enough, we will be giving away a $300 Amazon gift card every 30 minutes. So stay tuned for all of that. All right, well, that was it for our intro. We covered all that housekeeping stuff pretty quickly here, which means we get to get rolling on our sessions. So to get us started today, I get to bring out my favorite fellow moderators, and that's Keith Ward and Scott Becker, who are here to tell us about some of the trends that we are seeing as we look ahead at the next few years in IT. Now, Keith, Scott, that is no small ask. That's a lot to talk about, so I'm going to hand things right on over to you. Scott, take it away.
My pleasure, Scott.
So we're here for a summit about, what's coming in technology and planning ahead. So I know you've been doing some research about what some of the big trends are. So you've been looking into, looking around the corner, maybe looking into a crystal ball to mix a few metaphors there. Are you ready to talk about some of those results?
Oh, you bet.
Do you have some predictions for us?
I do, as a matter of fact, Scott. Thanks for having me on. So I have been, as you say, been trying to prognosticate about what the future could be looking like, both near term and in the longer view. And I wanted to look at three particular areas today. So let's start with security. And security for most companies has a focus on ransomware quite properly, because ransomware is not going anywhere. It is not slowing, it is only increasing. The attacks are getting more sophisticated. So one of the things that we're seeing, for example, on how this is happening is that we are seeing Chat GPT, which is AI, of course, but in terms of ransomware, this is a significant change, because ChatGPT is allowing the ransomware attackers to create better phishing attempts than there were up until very recently, where they were pretty easy to spot. Most of us are well educated enough to be able to spot the typical bad spelling, types of phishing emails. Well, ChatGPT is making those phishing emails look great. They don't look amateurish anymore. They don't look like a bot spit them out. They look personalized. So more people are going to be fooled by that, which means ransomware be able to get into your systems far easier than it would have just through that simple but still highly effective method of phishing. Couple other things. Let's talk about one other thing that's really important that everybody's concerned about when it comes to ransomware, and that is, should I or should I not pay the ransom? This is still controversial. The general feeling is that you shouldn't pay the ransom, but there are certain times when you don't have a choice, when the systems that are affected are too critical to public safety or for other reasons that you must pay, even though we're told not to. But now, more and more government officials, including the White House in the United States, are talking about outlawing government agencies' payment of ransoms, just a blanket forbidding of payment. So these conversations are happening now. North Carolina and Florida have already put laws on the books that say that you cannot pay the ransom if you're a local or state government office. So are other people going to follow suit, private companies, et cetera, and refuse to pay ransoms? Well, let's hope so, although that is fraught with potential complications. But I can see ransomware changing and evolving over the years with AI, and we may be able to use AI to fight it as well. So security via ransomware is going to be a big area to watch, Scott.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on your point about the quality of phishing emails, they no longer, a lot of them no longer look like it's being written by someone for whom English is a second language, which was such an easy tell on a lot of them. What are you seeing in terms of data? We've moved into yottabytes, and I forget there are a couple newly sanctioned terms, but like, where are we going with that?
They're going to have to come up with some new terms, I think. So the big one right now is zettabytes. That's beyond yottabytes. I don't know what a zettabyte is. If anyone on here knows, tell us. So, but I did see a statistic that by 2030 we'll have around 572 zettabytes of data. And to put that into the highly technical terms that our audience will understand, Scott, that's a big stinking lot of data out there. So the question is, of course, well, what do you do with all of it? And that question takes many forms, okay? Where do you keep it? Do you keep it in the cloud? Do you keep it on premises only? Do you keep it in a hybrid model where you keep some in the cloud, some on premises? And how do you make those decisions? What goes up? What comes down? What stays in? What stays in? What goes out? How do you secure it? It's all over the place, right? It could be in Amazon, it could be in Google, it could be in your own private cloud, it could be in Azure. It's all out there. There's a lot of endpoints. There's a lot of supply chain vendors probably on your network. There's so much out there. You have to secure it. How do you even know what you have? That's where monitoring comes in, and discovery within monitoring tools. Next, how do you collate, organize the data to derive actionable insights from it? You got all this data sitting around. Are you just going to let it sit there and get moldy? Or are you going to do something with it? Are you going to use the data to drive insights which will increase your bottom line, which, i.e., more customers, more sales, And the ways to do that are legion at this point. But you got to start looking into it. If you are not actively investigating data analytics and things like that, the time is quickly passing. You got to get on it right now.
And I think no discussion of these topics, of near-term future, expectations would be complete without looking at AI. So, what did you see there?
Let's start with a great quote, a little hyperbolic perhaps, but this is from Google's CEO. He said that AI is more significant than fire or electricity in terms of the impact it'll have on human civilization. Take that perhaps with a grain of salt, but it is massive, the transformation. The writer Bernard Marr, talking about this particular topic, had this quote that really stood out to me. One strong focus of AI activity in 2023 and going forward will be around the augmentation of workers. Although AI will inevitably lead to the disappearance of some types of human jobs, new ones will emerge to replace them. And I think he's exactly right. How will AI affect tech jobs? Everybody's concerned about that. You should start researching in whatever area of tech you work in to see how AI may be affecting. The effect may be negative. It may be positive. Don't assume the worst, though. Do your homework and find out. AI and automation is hugely important right now. It's only going to get more important. AI is used in all kinds of operations, DevOps, and monitoring and responding, to attacks, right? Lots of AI can predict attacks before they happen. They will watch for certain markers in your network, things like that, things that we cannot do because there's too much data out there. There's too many endpoints. There are too many attackers. So see, all the things we've been talking about, Scott, fold into this. AI is going to be, I think, foundational to where we go. And although we've been talking about different technologies, AI, I think, has the greatest potential to impact and to transform the future. I really believe that that's going to be the case going forward now and for the next decade or more.
Well, Keith, great predictions there, and there you have it, folks. A lot of predictions, and not to diminish what you're doing here, Keith, and the strength of your insights, but as my favorite football columnist Greg Easterbrook used to say, all predictions wrong or your money back.
That's good. I don't think I'll be out even a dime with that. So,
Keith, thank you for looking into your crystal ball for us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Scott. It was a pleasure to be here.
All right, guys, and now that was a great way to start off our summit. Always a nice time when we get to chat with Scott and Keith, right? It just starts the day on a wonderful note. And now it's your turn to answer some questions. We have a question for all of you up on the screen, and what we're wondering about is, what is your time frame for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company? So we have a couple of time frames up on the screen for you that we're wondering: 0 to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to 24, or you know what? I have no idea at all. Obviously, today we're kind of looking down the scope quite a ways. Hey, do you guys say pipeline or pike? Pipe or pike? I've heard both, so now I'm catching myself. Down the pipe and or pike. That's what we're looking today. Whatever you call it, that's where we're going. And so today might be a little bit more of that not sure category, because we're kind of thinking hypothetically, right? We're thinking about evolving these tools and long-term strategies. So you may not necessarily need to make changes right away, and that's fine. Again, this is just us kind of getting an idea of where you all are at. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of pipe. Great. Somebody told me it was actually pike initially, so that's why I'm questioning it. If anyone knows the roots of that phrase, please do let me know. But as I said, the pipe and the pike, here we go. I'm going to move things right along, so last chance to click on the poll. But we're going to jump into our very first session on the summit here, because I am so excited to get into this session. To kick things off on the summit, we've got two awesome experts here with us. We're going to be chatting with Kylie Fitzgerald, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Zerto, and with Frank Lacomba, Senior Director Product Management at Flexential. Kylie and Frank, thank you so much for being here with us today to kick off this summit. You are our very first session, and I know we're starting on a high note here. We want to leave some time for Q&A at the end, so I'm going to get things rolling here. Kylie, take it away.
My name is Kylie Fitzgerald. I'm Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Zerto. And today I'm joined by Frank Lacomba, Senior Director of Product Management at Flexential, one of our top partners, a platinum partner, who I believe, Frank, you guys have been a partner of ours for over a decade now?
Yeah, all the way back to 2012. We were one of the first MSPs.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been a long time. Good times.
Very good times. So today we're going to take the next 20 minutes to tell you all how Zerto and Flexential can help you achieve 24/7 uninterrupted business with our continuous data protection, serve you today and through the next few years into the future. So before we dive into our actual solution and services, let's talk about the three main challenges that we're hearing from our customers directly. First and foremost is the rise of ransomware, which continues to get more comprehensive each year and is expected to be a $265 billion industry by the year 2031. Last year alone, in an IDC survey, it was revealed that about 61% of DR responses were triggered by ransomware and malware attacks, and they took up to 21 days to recover. And that's if they could even recover that data at all. Which brings me to the second challenge that we hear, which is disruptions. Whether those are planned or unplanned, like a natural disaster or a ransomware attack. The downtime and data loss is no longer acceptable in today's high demand world. Yet 93% of organizations reported that they've suffered a data-related disruption in the last 12 months. And thirdly is the complexity of moving to the cloud. The adoption of hybrid and multi-cloud has introduced a new complexity to IT. And spending was at $332 billion in just 2021. And now the cloud footprint is expected to grow to 100 zettabytes by 2025. Frank, what are some of the challenges in relation to these that you've heard from your customers?
Me, Kylie. So I got to say the first one is the one that I hear all the time, right? And I hear it from customers. I hear it from CIOs. I pick up a trade magazine, it's all about ransomware nowadays, right? And I'll sum it up this way. I think there's two types of customers out there, right? The ones that have been hit by a cyber attack and the ones that are about to get hit by a cyber attack. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So you got to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you could be in bad shape.
But we're here to get you in good shape. So let's tell you exactly how we're handling and addressing these challenges. Well, we're handling them head on. We're laser focused on three key areas or use cases, which is ransomware recovery, disaster recovery, and multi-cloud mobility. And we're able to do this for any app, for any cloud, and against any threat. And this is all comprised and protected by our continuous data protection, which is our CDP and the only true CDP in the industry, as Zerto pioneered this space back in 2009 and has been a market leader for over a decade, providing you that always on protection, seamlessly protecting you in the background, whether you are working in a public, private, or hybrid cloud environment, and no matter where your data resides, we're there to protect you against any disruption. We work with partners like Flexential. Frank, you want to tell us a little bit about how Flexential is serving Zerto?
Sure. So for those that don't know who Flexential is, we're a 24-year-old hybrid IT company. As Kylie said earlier, Zerto Platinum Partner, or one of the first MSPs way back in 2012 to take on the partnership. And today we're protecting over 10,000 workloads with Zerto that originate from customer prems, from any one of our 41 data centers in the US, of which 5 are our disaster recovery data centers where we have the DRAS infrastructure. Our portfolio is made up of co-location, interconnection, cloud, data protection, and professional services that are delivered seamlessly in a platform we like to call Flex Anywhere, right? To help customers in their hybrid IT journey.
Great. So you guys can stay always on and always protected with our service, our solution and service through Flexential. But let's talk about why you with Zerto. What's the difference? What do we bring to the table? There's 4 key areas that differentiate us in the market in the DR industry. One is our continuous data protection that is unmatched. It's comprised of 3 key components, and I'll take you through those in just a minute. Secondly is the orchestration and automation that is built in and not tacked on as an extra service that provides our customers the ability to do non-disruptive testing more often and more comprehensively. Third is our workload mobility in a multi-cloud world, whether you're public, private, or hybrid, cloud native, and now what we're offering through HP GreenLake, the edge to cloud platform. And the 4th key difference that I'll take you through is how simple and easy this product is to use, and how you can continue to innovate your infrastructure with the flexible architecture that it's built upon, and the real-time monitoring and reporting that you get that can help you make a huge difference in your organization. So the first key component of continuous data protection, or CDP, is our near synchronous replication. It's the best of both worlds when it comes to both synchronous and asynchronous approaches. Because we are sitting at the hypervisor level, we can be a fully software-only solution that is totally independent of underlying hardware and infrastructure, including storage. So that's part of why Zerto works so well across hypervisors, clouds, and platforms. You have the choice to do what's best for your business, while Zerto is effortlessly and working in the background without impacting your production environment. And so that really means, as it works in the background, that it's a completely hands-off approach for you. There's no fiddling with backup windows or tweaking schedules. We're not taking snapshots, so there's no managing snapshot chains or wrangling a mess of agents. You simply set it up, replicate, and it stays always on, keeping you always protected. I know that this is a really big key difference for us, but Frank, do you want to highlight why as well?
Sure. Hey, Kylie, one of the things that I hear a lot from our customers on why they choose a Zerto-based disaster recovery strategy, and you nailed it, it's that hardware agnostics, right? Not having to depend on a certain compute or storage platform, having that flexibility to mix and match, right? You can have brand A of storage in your production, brand B in DR. That flexibility is not something you can easily find in other products.
Yes, exactly. So let's bring it to the second key component that makes up CDP, which is the unique journaling capability. We provide a hyper granular journal that takes checkpoints every few seconds and can be stored for up to 30 days. So that in the event of an attack, you would be able to roll back to a point in time just a few seconds ago before the attack took place and return to business operations in just a few minutes. The example here that we're showing is say you're attacked by ransomware at 10 p.m. at night. If you only have a backup solution in place, you may have to roll back and lose and possibly lose up to 24 hours of data. If you are only using snapshots in your environment, you have the potential to lose up to 4 hours of data. But with With Zerto, you're able to roll back to a point seconds before that attack, saying at 9:59 and 55 seconds. That's only 5 seconds, a crazy recovery point objective, and being able to roll back in just a few minutes. And with that, we're also offering now in Zerto 10 inline ransomware detection, allowing you to detect an anomaly in your environment as it's happening and be able to get back to check and get your business back in operations very quickly. So bringing us to our third key component of continuous data protection would be the application-centric protection and recovery. In what we're doing here is, instead of rolling back inconsistent recovery of multi-VM applications where each VM is being restored at a different point in time, you're able to roll back everything as one cohesive logical entity. And that's because of our virtual protection groups and how you can put these together to keep those most mission critical business assets together to keep you online and running efficiently while you're handling whatever the disruption was in the background. This will continue to work and operate at that level. And this is no easy feat. There's a lot that's happening on the back end that you are not seeing, but we're offering that same validated checkpoint with right order fidelity across all of them, no matter what the underlying hosts or data stores are being used. It's pretty incredible work that is happening on the back end and allows you to have that reduced time to recovery. So bringing us right along to the second key difference that Zerto offers is what is the orchestrated and automated performance and the non-disruptive testing that you're able to have in your to do. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. You select the groups of virtual machines or applications and put them into those virtual protection groups. Then you will select a certain point in time that you want to fail back to, or before you begin that failover test or real live event failover. And it's as simple as that, 1, 2, 3. And after you get those DR plans and strategies in place, you can set it up and automate it, and it can work, as I've said, seamlessly in the background while you are focused on other events. This also allows you to do testing more often because it's non-disruptive to your production environment. So in the middle of your day on a Monday, instead of on the weekend at 3 a.m. at night when the business numbers are low, instead you're able to do this in the middle of the day, in the middle of your work week, allowing your team to test more often and more comprehensively and see that you're getting RPOs of just seconds and RTOs of just a few minutes. And I mean, I can speak to this all day, but Frank, what can you give us a real world example of a customer that has seen a big difference with this?
Sure. So Kylie, we have a case study here. This customer is in the insurance industry, right? They were one that, or they are one that tests frequently, so they have good discipline around testing. And they had the unfortunate circumstance of getting hit with ransomware. The environment obviously was mission critical. And the fact that they had the DRES service from us, along with our IP failover services, when the attack occurred, they were able to fail over from their on-premise cloud environment to Flexential. IP failover was initiated, network swung over beautifully. The customer was able to recover in less than 4 hours. And during that period, right, they were able to go back to their production environment and start remediation. They were able to rebuild their environment. And once that was built, set up reverse replication. So we're replicating back to production from the DR site. Once those two sites were in sync, we were able to schedule a fail back, switch the network back, put it all back the way it was or should be, and they didn't miss a beat. A great success story. Customer was really happy, and I think it all comes back to the importance of testing, and that ease of doing non-disruptive tests creates a culture of doing tests. In the years past, right, doing testing was painful. You'd have to do them on the weekends or on holidays. Nobody wanted to do it. People thought of it as a checkbox requirement. Now with the technology, Zerto's technology, you can do non-disruptive tests during the day, during the weekends, whenever you want to do them. And it's really important.
And so you can join, customers just like the one that Frank has talked about here as an example. But our overall numbers right now, our Zerto customers are performing a combined 18,000 plus tests per month with an average RTO of 3 minutes and an RPO of 3 minutes and 19 seconds. So that's saying a lot.
Hey, Kylie, one more thing. You talked about the VPGs, right, in the earlier slide. The beauty is that you can test one VPG, two VPGs, all the VPGs, right? So on an application-specific basis, test what you need to test.
Exactly.
Right? Especially like if you do a code release on an application, go test it.
Yep, exactly. So let's bring it to the fourth key difference, and that's the fact that we're industry best with workload mobility and what we're doing to unlocking multi-cloud worlds and environments. When you think about cloud models, whether infrastructure as a service or platform as a service or SaaS, there are a number of use cases that instantly become available. DR to the cloud, for example, is a great way to get an offsite target and kickstart a cloud strategy. Once you're using the cloud, there might be a need, though, to migrate up there altogether, or even migrate out if your strategy changes. Excuse me. Inside the cloud, we offer orchestrated, highly scalable DR for born in the cloud instances and migrated workloads. And as you have understood, we can work with any public, private, hybrid cloud models. We are now offering our solution through HP GreenLake for with a product called HP GreenLake for disaster recovery. And we work with numerous wonderful partners and wonderful MSPs like our platinum partner, Flexential here. So the last key difference that I just want to quickly highlight is that I want to re-highlight actually is just that ease of deployment and operation, the fact that it's built on a flexible architecture, sitting at that hypervisor level, allowing you to test more often with a not disrupt your environment. And then you're going to be able to make sure that you're meeting stringent SLAs no matter what industry you are in and the compliancy standards that you have. You're going to, with Zerto Analytics, you're going to get a SaaS-based summary of all your connected sites. You get data-driven predictive insights into the infrastructure needs and ready-made reports to help you stay in compliance. So why Zerto? Why now? The positive outcomes are only possible because of how Zerto is enabling you all to achieve continuous protection for any app, any cloud, any threat. Zerto can help you mitigate disruptions by protecting your brand from outages and disruptions. You can neutralize ransomware threats by recovering in minutes to seconds before an attack. And if you're looking to modernize your infrastructure, Zerto can remove the complexity there to support disparate infrastructures and capitalize on any new tech that you're exploring. You can unlock the multi-cloud and hybrid cloud to drive digital transformation with cross-platform protection for IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS. And we can simplify migrations as well by reducing resources and speeding up consolidations with hassle-free cross-cloud mobility. And lastly, it's all about improving your operational efficiency with automated orchestration and consumer-level simplicity that's brought to the enterprise to streamline IT operations. And Frank, I want to tell them for a quick minute here, why Flexential?
Sure. So our DRES offering, first and foremost, is a self-service offering. It's ideal for those customers that want to take advantage of Zerto, want to use our 10 plus years of experience with Zerto to ensure that they have a good DR solution. Additionally, it's really great for those customers that want to avoid the capital or the operational expenses of building out a second DR site. It's built on VMware. We have multiple network connectivity solutions that can help you connect from point A to point B. You get the Zerto license in a pay-as-you-go model. There's 24/7 support and a great self-service portal. If you want to augment that a little bit, right, we have planning and testing services in our Plan Test Ready bundle that help you ensure that you have that DR plan written down, you know how to swing the network, and do that first test to get you out of the box using the product. Then you can go do self-service, or you can continue to have us assist you with the testing. And you know, we have a slew of other services such as strategy for DR, HA design, as well as complementary services in backup as a service, cloud, co-location, and NIST cybersecurity framework, professional and managed services. So as we talked about ransomware, ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Absolutely. So let's tell everybody what they can do to start testing those DR plans and strategies. So get all the latest Zerto news. If you scan that QR code on the left, that's going to take you to our Zerto 10 page to give you the latest updates, talking about that real-time ransomware detection and a couple other key components like Azure to Azure capabilities. But I'd really encourage you all, if you haven't already, take one of our free hands-on labs. You get to test drive Zerto on demand at your own time and own pace. Or you could request a live tailored demo if you'd prefer somebody to walk you through it. So info@zerto.com or just go to zerto.com/labs to get started. Frank?
Sure. Thanks, Kylie, again. And if you want to learn more about FlexCentral's DRaaS offering, you can scan the QR code. Go to flexcentral.com, drop us an email at sales@flexcentral.com. And lastly, Kylie, I want to thank you and let you know that I really appreciate the opportunity to be here on behalf of FlexCentral, and appreciate the opportunity to share some of our experiences with Zerto in helping our customers plan, test, and recover from those unseen outages.
Absolutely. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Yep.
We'll take questions if need be right now.
All right, well, we are definitely going to jump into some questions. Thank you so much, Kylie and Frank, for that awesome presentation. Before we start getting to our audience questions, we have a question back to all of you out there, and what we want to know is what additional information you would like to get about the Zerto FlexCentral solution. So click on that poll right now. As I always say, this is clicking the easy button, right? You're letting them know exactly what you want, exactly how they can follow up with you. So you guys click on that poll there. We are going to jump into some questions. Kylie, I have to tell you, Peter sent us a message and said that you must be psychic because you were answering his questions before he could even type them in. So well done on that.
Good to hear. Glad to hear that.
All right, well, let's start with this one here. If my staff can't perform the DR failover, because in this case we're assuming they're impacted by the disaster, can FlexCentral perform that for us? Frank, do you want to kick that off?
Sure. So the answer is yes. FlexCentral can execute the DR failover for our customers. We do it by creating what we call a DR plan, which is a knowledge article in our IT service management system, and that gets created at time of implementation. And it contains all the necessary information to fail the customer over if they are unable to do it themselves. We'll swing the network, we'll do the bring up the environment, and once it's executed, it's up to the customer to manage their environment from there going forward. So pretty seamless.
Okay. Yeah. That's what we're going for in these situations. Kylie, this next one I think is for you. When was Zerto 10 released? And a follow-up question, is the real-time ransomware detection an extra cost?
Oh, great question. So thank you for paying attention to the call to action there. So Zerto 10, it just released on July 5th. If you did follow the QR code back there, or if you just go to Zerto.com, you can watch a replay and learn a lot more about what else was released, which includes the real-time ransomware anomaly detection, and that comes at no extra cost. We have built that into our product along with a lot of the other features and capabilities, so it comes as one great built-in solution, or full built-in solution for our customers.
Awesome. All right. Well, team, I really wish we could keep going with these questions, because I have to say there are quite a few in our inbox, and we are just scratching the surface. If you guys have a little time to stick around on live chat to get some answers out. Otherwise, for everyone out there in the audience, please know that if we're not getting to your questions in these live Q&A sessions, we are going to make sure that they get to the team. So you'll either get responses over live chat or an email follow-up. Kylie and Frank, before you leave us, though, if somebody out there is really excited, wants to get started and kind of jump in, either learning more or getting rolling, what do you recommend as the very first step? And Kylie, I'll start with you, and then Frank.
As I had mentioned a little bit earlier, I would really recommend the hands-on labs. I think that's really something that you can see for yourself how it works. So going to Zerto.com/labs. And then otherwise, if you just email us at info@Zerto.com, we can help you get set up a live tailored demo if you're really truly interested in the product and want something specific for your business need.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Frank, anything you want to add?
Yeah, and from a Flexential side, you can hit the QR code, go to the Flexential website, or just send Flexential an email at sales@flexential.com, and we'd be more than happy to engage, walk you through what we do and how we do it, and try to help you out.
I love that. Okay, nice and easy, lots of ways to connect. Again, Kylie, Frank, I'm sorry that we couldn't chat more. These sessions go by so quickly, but it was such a pleasure to hear from you both, and I know the audience really enjoyed. You guys are getting a lot of high fives from the folks out there, so thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, thanks, Jess. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
All right, and to all of you out there who are clicking on the poll, keep that up. While you're also getting those last questions in and clicking on that poll, I'm going to remind you to head over to the Handouts tab. Do not forget about the Handouts tab as we go through our sessions today. This is such a great way to follow up on each of the conversations that we're having. In this case, I'm definitely going to give a shout out because I love a good ebook. I really do. And so you can grab from the Zerto Flexential link. You can get that DRAS ebook, and it's DRAS 101, covering the actual and cumulative cost of disruption to your business, and really digs into the evolving threat landscape, taking a look at why having those comprehensive strategies is really important. So this is a really cool ebook. Make sure you've got that. Just download it, put it aside for now, because you're not going to have time to read it in the next hour or two, but you are going to want it after we wrap. So questions coming in, clicking on the polls, downloading that handout, that's your assignment. My assignment is I'm going to give away another prize. So let's start out with a $300 Amazon gift card. Now, I'll remind you again that you do need to be here live and present with us at the summit in order to win. And our very next winner of a $300 Amazon gift card is Buck Thompson of Colorado. Buck Thompson of Colorado, congratulations. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap up the webinar. Now, don't forget, folks, as you remember from the start here, there are a lot of prizes left to be claimed, so stay tuned for that. And we will keep coming back to those in between our sessions. Speaking of sessions, it is time to move things right along because we have another exciting one in the wings. As you can see, this is a whole awesome crew of humans here with us today. So we are going to be chatting with Arvind Nisvarkashev, co-founder, head of engineering, CTO at Rubrik. That is quite the title there, Arvind. Alex Weiner, VP Identity Security, Microsoft, and John Kindervag, creator of Zero Trust. Yes, also another great title there. All right, now this team has kind of put together a bit of a mini summit within our summit, right? Kind of meta, a tiny summit in the summit. And they're going to zoom in a little bit on Zero Trust and why you should be considering this approach if you want to have a resilient strategy. I'm very excited to listen in on this conversation. So Arvind, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our discussion on why Zero Trust security is a must for cyber resilience. I'm Arvind Netrakashyap, co-founder and CTO of Rubrik. Today, I'm honored to be joined by John Kinderberg, creator of Zero Trust model of cybersecurity, and Alex Weinert, VP and Director of Identity Security at Microsoft. To start us off, I'll start with John. You came up with Zero Trust in 2010 when you were an analyst at Forrester. Maybe talk to us about what made you come up with that model and how it's still relevant today.
So when I was at Forrester, that's kind of a unique experience to get to work at a place like that. And they want you to think big thoughts and research big topics. And there was a thing that we all know, the trust model. It kind of was built into firewalls in the day, the trusted side of the network, untrusted side. And eventually through research, I realized that was the significant cause of data breaches. So I wanted to look at how could I stop data breaches and make other cybersecurity attacks unsuccessful from a strategic perspective. And I realized if we got rid of trust, the idea of digital trust, a human emotion, if we got rid of that from the networks that we were running, that would go a long way to it. And it just took off from there.
Great points, John. And I think Zero Trust is even more relevant today than when you created in 2010. So Alex, shifting to you, both Rubrik and Microsoft have embraced Zero Trust as a design principle for our products. We're also helping our customers deploy that in their organizations. You've also blogged recently about Zero Trust. What are some emerging trends about Zero Trust that you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, so I think that as we've seen this evolve, there's a couple of things that are pertinent. One is that as customers have gotten more invested in Zero Trust, we've seen more in terms of some very practical ways to apply things like just simple things like rollout and understanding impact. We see more common deployment practices. I think there's more crosstalk between customers trying to share best practices. So all of that's helping customers mature their approach. At the same time, we see, I think, the expansion of surface area that comes along with digital transformation. So when we look at, for example, know your customer or any number of paper processes that have been converted to digital, all of those things increase the surface area that customers are dealing with. And a lot of that increases in terms of data collected and then apps used to process that data. And so we're now creating apps faster than we're creating humans, right? And so when we think about Zero Trust, and I'm an identity geek, so I would say when we think about Zero Trust as applied to identity, it's really important for us to think about identity in a broad way, right? The identity of the devices, the identity of the services, the identity of still the user, right? But thinking about Zero Trust as a really encompassing philosophy that we can use to kind of get around an actor, whatever kind of actor it is, as it tries to get access to whatever resource that we're worried about. So that's a major thing. And I think with all of that comes this mandate to really try to, both as vendors and as users and architects, think about agility on a constant pathway, right? Like we're kind of constantly expanding our digital estates, and we have to be careful that we're not accruing debt faster than we can pay it off, right? So as we think about, how we roll a program, how do we roll the next program? What are we thinking about in terms of the practices we can put in place and the technologies we put in place to help make us faster?
Well, that's a great point, Alex. I think from our vantage point, we see that data and devices are just exploding. And from that perspective, when we look at data loss and downtime, John, how do you see Zero Trust evolving to help us protect against data loss and downtime of applications?
Well, that was what it was designed to do. It was originally designed to stop and prevent data breaches. So I define a data breach not by what's coming into our organization, but what's going out of it, right? Regulatory entities like GDPR, CCPA, PCI, all define a data breach as the exfiltration of sensitive or regulated data from our networks of systems into the hands of a malicious actor. And so I knew that everybody was just looking at what was coming in and not coming out. And you needed to understand what you needed to protect. So I created a 5-step methodology, and it's been widely adopted today. And today we talk about the first step is defining your protect surface. But back then, when I originally did it, it was called define your data. Now, data is still primary in Zero Trust, but there's other things we want to protect. Sometimes it's the full application. Sometimes it's an asset like a SCADA system, or sometimes it's a service. But all those things can apply the Zero Trust model and the 5-step principles to that process. So really, it started out being all about data. How can I stop data breaches? And I have a lot of experience in that. I'm one of the first generation of QSAs, right? So I'm a recovering QSA. So anybody who's done PCI knows that PCI is a 12-step program. So when you leave, you go into recovery. And I learned how to protect a single binary data string called a PAN, right? Which falls under cardholder data in the PCI DSS. And that was invaluable to the lessons that I learned as an engineer and an architect to bring forth to the world as the basis of Zero Trust.
And when it comes to achieving Zero Trust, it's not just about technology. It's about culture. It's about organizational changes. What are some considerations there?
I think the most important thing is the proper set of incentives. So Zero Trust was designed to be strategically resonant as a strategy to the highest levels of any organization and be tactically implemented using whatever the state of the art of the technology is. And so purposely, I decoupled strategy and tactics. And we're seeing that play out today. As we're recording this is the 1-year anniversary of us delivering the NSTAC, Zero Trust and Trusted Identity Subcommittee report to the President of the United States. That was a big deal. I got to sit on a subcommittee with a whole lot of really important and impressive people, and we came up with, what is essentially the definitive document about what Zero Trust is. And so the President changed the incentive structure through his executive order, and that's what I want leaders who are listening to this. You can be the driving force that can stop data breaches and stop cybersecurity attacks from being successful by leveraging Zero Trust as a strategy and then helping guide your teams in implementing it using the best tools that are available to them today.
This is something that we want to truly help our customers achieve. And I think for most organizations, I think it's a question of when and not if they get attacked. So there is the element of reacting to an attack, and so kind of the defense mechanism. But then you also want to be proactive, right? You want to be able to address weakness in system that you can proactively address rather than just wait for an attack. So how does Zero Trust architecture help with this, in your opinion?
Well, Zero Trust, the first thing it does, it defines what you need to protect. If you don't know that, how are you ever going to protect anything, right? So that's the concept of the protect surface, shrinking the attack surface that Alex already mentioned, which is growing exponentially all the time. It's like the universe constantly expanding, shrinking it down to something small and easily understood. That's the protect surface. And so data goes into a protect surface. An application will go into it. The things that I need to protect, and then I'll build out Zero Trust environments one protect surface at a time. So it becomes incremental, iterative, and therefore non-disruptive. The most you can screw up at any one time is one protect surface. Now you can start tackling those massive problems of cybersecurity around data protection, around asset protection, and you understand what you're protecting, and you have a roadmap to get you there. And that's what my customers are adopting, and that's what I try to message, that this is easy to do, it's cost effective, and it resonates up to the boardroom.
Well, those are great insights. Alex, maybe I'll touch upon a little bit of your area of expertise, mainly about authentication technologies. Obviously, there's a plethora of things that all of us have to deal with: multi-factor, two-person rules, one-time passwords, and all of that. My wife still gives me a hard time about setting up 2FA on all our accounts. So how do these deliver on the promise of Zero Trust architecture?
Yeah, so I'll throw out some interesting numbers. Like we measure the number of attacker-driven authentication requests using passwords per day. And it breaks down to a little over 1,000 per second. So we're talking about north of 100 million a day. Password attacks are so common and so effective that at this point, you can think of its password as sort of a tax you pay to go to the next level of authentication, right? It's not a meaningful protection on its own. When we talk about Zero Trust, we think in terms of this explicit verification of, really being thoughtful about what are all the things we know for sure. I think John mentioned earlier, there was a time when we all were all in the M&M model. If it's like, if I have a VPN, I'm fine. And if it's inside the IP, if it's in the right IP range, I won't worry about anything else. And rather than that sort of implicit model, which would be, because I think I know the IP address, I'm going to assume that the user is okay. I assume the device is okay. I assume everything else is fine. Right? Moving to that explicit model, we think about one of the things we really want to know is who are we interacting with? And at a user level, to say, well, I saw somebody's publicly disclosed email address, and I just read a report. It was an updated most common passwords, and it's one of them is 11111111, which is both hilarious and tragic, right? So as we think about, like, from the identity perspective, where we lean into this is how do we assure strong identity? And for that, we have to, I think, not only move off of the old, password alone model, which frankly, is massively outdated, right? And I'm still seeing articles about how to have a stronger password, like don't have a password. That's how you have a stronger password. But if we move that forward, we say, okay, what about password plus an SMS channel that's like relatively easy to compromise? We can do a lot better, right? We can start getting into things like, FIDO2 and other technologies that essentially make the compromise of that particular piece, the credential, harder. We still have to think about malware. We still have to think about endpoint security. We still have to think about all the other things that can happen, which I think is kind of a key part of zero trust, is that we don't trust any of these elements, right? We triangulate signal from all of them and try to make a reasoned decision. But from an identity perspective, I think the leading things here, one of them I touched on before, which is the criticality of the breadth of identity. And the other one I would say is, as we think about identity as a first step, we're still in a world where about 70% of users will never see an MFA challenge in a month, right? It's like this crazy low number, 30% adoption of MFA after years of banging on the door. We have to get to a place where we can say, we understand who the user is for sure. We're doing what we can to ensure that we understand the device posture, that we're thinking about, the IP address does matter, but it can matter in terms of what are attackers doing with that IP address right now? What's the current threat intelligence we have about it? Really bringing in as much source as we can. From an identity perspective, the key thing is, strong authentication. Increasingly, that means phishing resistant, like the EO specifies, phishing resistant, strong credentials, FIDO2, cert-based auth can work. There's a couple of different options here, but have to have stronger auth than a password for sure.
Yeah, we have a similar experience. We are trying to get all our customers to adopt MFA, and we are beating the drum and trying to get there, one customer at a time.
One thing I would add, just like briefly, is that I think part of the reason that people resist MFA is that they have a 20-year-old thing in their head about what it's like, right? Like I'm going to, every hour I'm going to get prompted and I have to go find my phone and I have to go type in a code. And like, that's not what modern MFA is like. Most of the time you're doing strong authentication now, you don't know you're doing it. Right, like you pick up your phone and you look at it, you're authenticating. It's strong authentication using a secure element, a biometric ID, and a possession proof. Right, that's an invisible to the user MFA experience. The other thing I would say briefly and importantly is this thing that if you're using 20-year-old guidance, like change your password every couple of months, well, now you're training me to use spring, summer, winter, and fall as the passwords I use. Right. If you are using complexity rules, you're reducing key space for attackers. And then if you're prompting a lot, what you're training your users to do is to respond to every prompt. And this is a huge problem. So we're seeing MFA fatigue attacks. That's a direct corollary to people who have policies that require over-prompting. So if your user is actually interacting with MFA on any kind of regular basis in a way that they see it and understand it, you've got a problem. Like you've set up your wife for MFA on a bunch of platforms, it should be like, thank you, because this is easier than having to remember a password. If we're doing it right, we're reducing friction. And I think that's a key thing about zero trust overall. Done right, it actually increases productivity.
Can you call my wife, please? But jokes aside, I think, no, these are great points. I think partly this is where I think some of the consumer adoption of MFA can also make it easier for enterprise to adopt it because the people are actually used to it and understand how it works. Maybe shifting tracks a little bit, John. I mean, we obviously live in a data and metrics driven world, and implementing zero trust takes effort, takes planning. I mean, how can we measure the impact of zero trust towards minimizing data loss, right? I think if we can clearly articulate that, I think it'll be easier for organizations to both get the time and resources to do that. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So if we look at big data breaches that have happened, the two most famous, Snowden, Manning, right? They're the Beyonce and the Rihanna of cybersecurity. They're one-word people. Well, they had all of the things that we're talking about, right? They had MFA, they had robust identity, but nobody looked at their packets post-authentication. So this is the other side of it. There's 4 design principles. Design principle 3 is need to know, least privileged access. Design principle 4 is inspect and log all traffic up at layer 7. And that's where we would do things like DLP and some other things, but we don't have to necessarily do all of that. We can say, which resources does Edward Snowden need to have access to in order to do his job? So the way we create policy is not open everything up to everybody and then try to play whack-a-mole against it. We create specific granular policy rules that say, John is allowed to access this for this particular purpose. And that's built into what's known as the Kipling method. Rudyard Kipling gave us who, what, when, where, why, and how. And I use that as a way to define who should have access, right? The identity stuff that Alex is talking about, via what application, where is that located, and then how should we look at that packet and inspect it or approve it, or look at metadata or behavior analytics or whatever we can do at the highest level to have a lot of validation that is the right user accessing the right resource via the right application at the right time, so that we can have confidence. And then ultimately what we're measuring is the maturity of that system over a period of time. So there's a maturity model built into that. And so all of those things can give us a high degree of confidence that we're allowing the right individuals to use the right data at the right time for the right purpose. And then we can, again, make it, you're exactly right, Alex. It then becomes pretty frictionless. You know, the only time there's a friction is when Edward Snowden doesn't have access to the stuff he's trying to steal. Well, what does he do? Does he call up the help desk? Hey, I was in the middle of downloading this stuff that I was going to give to WikiLeaks. You've stopped my access. You know, no, that doesn't happen. So if we become very, very specific and have a very granular set of explicit allow rules with very few deny rules, quit denying things, but allow. Now we're going to change the game. We're inverting the problem and we're actually solving it.
Well, that's a great point. I think this is something we are, laser focused on, trying to identify that sensitive data that's critical, right? That's tons of data, but if we focus on sensitive data and give insights into to our customers about, who has access, who was accessing them, and things like that, I think that actually makes it much easier to go and solve that.
And just to follow up on that, because it's a good point, we give too much access to too much data to too many people for no reason other than we've always done it that way, right? And I don't know what data you have, but like when I was at Forrester, I started the data security and privacy playbook. I was looking at this and I realized that about 80% of the data that was held by any organization was what we defined as stale, meaning no one had looked at it in the past year. So it's just there. We keep it. We become hoarders, like that TV show. We want to hoard our data and keep it. We might need it someday, but we're actually not using it. And this is going to be much bigger problem now that we want more and more data for artificial intelligence and analytics and all that kind of stuff. And so what are the malicious actors going to attack? They're going to attack those big data stores, because if they can get that data, right, they can monetize it in some way, or they can just hold on to it for figuring out what to do with it later. So we're even seeing nation-state actors steal big blobs of encrypted data that they can't decrypt now, assuming that steal now, decrypt later is a good policy.
Yeah. I'd say that one thing about the approach of developing the allow list, we see a lot of, we obviously work with lots and lots of customers as well. And we see a lot of people get into kind of an analysis paralysis, right? Like, well, I might need access someday, or, don't tell me I can't have access to the thing, or like the sort of debate about who gets to set those rules. At Microsoft, when we rolled these things out, like for our own corporation, for our own rollout, one technique that we developed was to start, and I really recommend this, is to start thinking in terms of like, when we talk about capturing everything in logs, like get everything logged for 3 months without applying any policy, right? You get through a quarterly, for us, like a quarterly reporting cycle, right? You can actually see with a lot of integrity who's accessing what data in their day-to-day job, right? There might be the occasional person who's like an outlier, insider attack, bad person, whatever, right? That's in there. And you can actually tune that out in terms of, thinking about like, what's my deviation from that norm for a given organization. But a given organization is going to access specific resources at specific times from specific locations by specific people, right? And that's actually a really good starting point for establishing your policies, right? Start out by kind of saying, okay, what's normal? Let's codify normal. And then you can go and start doing takebacks. The alternative that I've seen happen is, 2 years of like bickering to kind of not have the whole time you're just like, oh, everybody has access to everything because we can't decide what the takebacks are. Instead of that, do an allow list based on actual user activity that's normal. And then you can start to take back from there, but at least you have an initial position where if somebody goes rogue or somebody's account is hacked, they're at least constrained to what their job function really requires that they do. Like that's a reasonable sort of, tactical first step to take.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that's what I do in my day job is help people do that. We look at logs and telemetry all the time, right? So we want to understand how people normally use a particular application. And we would see this all the time in the PCI business that, people just wanted to have access to it and didn't need it and had never had it, right? So you would take their access away. And most of the time they never know, right? So if you can have that kind of telemetry and you can go, well, John has never accessed this, but he has access to it. Let's revoke the access and then he'll let us know if it's a problem. And eventually what organizations have to say in this modern threat environment is, sorry, you may want it, but you don't get it because your job doesn't require it. And I do this all the time. I tell people, I don't want to have access to your data. That violates the first principle of zero trust. Don't give me access to anything that I don't need to do my job. And there's never been one time in the past, 12 years that I've been doing this in real life that I've ever needed access to my customers' data to do my job, right? So I'm an architect. I can help you design it, but don't give me access. I don't need that. And so that should not be, man, you nailed it on the head there, Alex. So thank you.
Yeah, great points. And I think the key thing is, can we surface the signal from the noise and really warn our customers when something abnormal happens, right? That's where you can go and take some actions and hopefully, proactively address some threats. Alex, shifting back to you, I think obviously a lot of our customers are in the process of moving to cloud or are in the cloud or thinking about it. And so in this multi-cloud, hybrid cloud world, how do you kind of see zero trust playing a role and addressing the challenges there?
Well, I think that, as we look at, first of all, almost no one is existing in a world where they're in one cloud exactly, or they're on-prem only, or, that world doesn't really exist, right? So the question, when we think about this is, as we think about zero trust policy, right, as we think about, like we were just talking about the allow lists, right? Or where do we do our logging, right? The more disparate and fragmented that is, the harder it is to get control and truth, right? One of the nice things about a zero trust strategy is that, like, one of the things we tell people is that, like, at Microsoft, we have literally hundreds of thousands of applications that we run internally. And when we think about, if you were trying to apply principles like explicit verification and least privilege access app by app by app, you would never, ever get there, right? You'd be kind of slave to each of these controls. So you need some sort of, request interception policy enforcement thing to happen. That same thing can create some logging and some intelligence for you. That same thing can give you a source for anomaly detection, right? As we go across that space, it's okay, I think, in sort of natural and normal and, just truth, that of course we have multiple cloud providers in play. And of course we have on-premises resources that we haven't been able to migrate yet, right? Or that for whatever reason we're required to keep on premises. We would like the visibility and control aspects of that, however, kind of pick a thing. Like, there's the old expression, which is, a person with one clock knows what time it is. A person with two is never sure. That's doubly true for zero trust policy, visibility and enforcement. right? So I think as we go across these spaces, there's nothing that prohibits you applying a zero trust policy in your organization and using that strategy, regardless of where the resources you care about exist, right? Wherever the data is, the data is. What I think you don't want to do is say, I have this engine for this environment and this engine for this environment and this engine for this environment. And then I have to figure out that my policy is, how do those things exactly intersect? Like, what exactly is the Venn diagram overlap between these things, and what happens in those spaces? Simple examples, we have people who are, for example, invested in ADFS for federation, and they have a set of rules there. And then they have Azure AD, for cloud access to cloud apps. They have a set of rules there. They might have another thing which is doing like privileged access management. They have a set of rules there, right? They may be doing some network controls. They have a set of rules there. Well, the attacker's job is to figure out what you don't know, because you have different admins for each of those things, right? Which is where the gaps in those rules are. So there's some real advantage to singularity, right? To saying, essentially, if we can sort of invest and say, we understand where we're looking to for policy, and that policy has integrity across wherever my resources are, then that gives me better visibility, better triangulation of activity, and better at least privileged access controls than if I have this sort of scattered hither and yon.
Thank you, John and Alex, for spending the time today. I'm sure our listeners found this extremely enjoyable and insightful. I definitely did. Thank you again.
Hey, thank you. It was really a pleasure.
Yeah, same for me. Appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to everybody. And I hope you got something out of it. Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, that was a brain tingler. Hey, I don't know about you guys, but I was clinging on every word. I hadn't actually heard that phrase. A person with one clock knows what time it is, and with two is never sure. That is sticking with me. I love that. Among many other things I'm taking away from that incredible talk. All right. Well, I know you all enjoyed that, and I can see there's a lot of questions coming in. We went a bit long in the conversation, which means we don't have time for Q&A. However, all of your questions are going to go to the Rubrik team, so you are going to get answers back. And so please do keep those coming in. We want to make sure that you get answers to those questions. In the meantime, also be sure that you are clicking on the poll. Let us know what additional information you would like to get about the Rubrik solution. Obviously, this was a really cool conversation. We stayed a little bit more high level. There's lots to dig into and how Rubrik can help facilitate some of those solutions for you and that zero trust approach. So be sure that you click on that poll and get that information. You can also visit our handouts tab. That's a really great place always to find some additional information. In this case, there's a white paper, The Definitive Guide to Zero Trust Data Security. A really great read, a great follow-up again to everything that we were just chatting about. So be sure that you've got that, download that, put that aside, save that for later, because you are going to want to come back to it. But for now, we are also going to give away a prize, and then we're going to keep things rolling in this summit. Lots to do today. Busy day. All right, so speaking of busy, let's do two prizes in this one. We're going to do a $300 Amazon gift card, and we're going to do a Kindle Scribe. In fact, we're going to do 3 of those Kindle Scribes. So I'm going to start with the $300 Amazon gift card. I'll remind you one more time that you do need to be here live and present with us at the summit. But hey, as I always say, where else would you rather be? So hopefully you're here with us, and then you are entered to win one of these awesome prizes. Our $300 Amazon gift card today is going to Raj Tandon of Georgia. Raj Tandon of Georgia. And then I've got 3 of those Kindle Scribes, so let's give those away. First one going to Gina Lim Vu of California. Second one going to Nate Oyama of New Jersey. And a third one going to Parisa Efashani. Hang on. Esfahani. I'm so sorry, Parisa. I'm not doing a good job with that at all. Esfahani. I think that's it. All right, Parisa, you have won a Kindle Scribe. So those 3 names, Gina Limvu of California, Nate Oyama of New Jersey, and Parisa Esfahani of Texas has all won a Kindle Scribe, and we will follow up with you after we wrap. I think I need more coffee. That's what I'm going to go for. All right. Well, before I take a quick coffee break, although I can't go anywhere, we've got so many cool presentations lined up. I'm just on the edge of my seat. We are going to jump into our next awesome session here. And that is, of course, the Nutanix crew. It is my pleasure to introduce you all to our next expert presenter. That's Jeff Kelly, Senior Product Marketing Manager with Nutanix. Jeff, I'm so excited to hear from you and the crew. You guys always have such cool stuff going on. I know we want to leave some time for Q&A at the end, so I'm going to hand it over to you. Jeff, take it away.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks everybody for being here. And let me mute my computer, which I thought I had done, which I didn't. There we go. Yeah, thanks everyone for being here. Hope everyone's having a great day. I know I am. So today, I'm here to talk to you a little bit about automating database services for faster application development. So my name's Jeff Kelly. I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Nutanix, where I work on our database products as well as our other data services. And yeah, why don't we just get right into it? So I think, we have to start this conversation. While it's a technical conversation, I do think we have to start it at more of a kind of a business conversation and think about the things that organizations today are striving to do. And there's really three strategic initiatives that we hear over and over again from our customers. First, almost all of our customers, most of them being large enterprises, large commercial organizations, are looking to transform how they operate. They're looking to engage their customers with new digital experiences, and basically using software really to delight their customers, deliver new experiences, new products and services. And that's really critical. All companies today really need to use software to deliver to their customers. The second is obviously they're looking to grow. You've got to protect existing revenue streams, but you're also looking to develop new revenue streams. You've got to consistently and constantly look to grow the business in different ways. And of course, you have to do this in a kind of a secure way while you're maintaining compliance across all your workloads, your applications. You want to make sure your applications are secure, your data is secure. And so transform, grow, and manage risk are really the things that we hear over and over again from our customers that are their real top strategic initiatives. But of course, there are a number of constraints, budget being one that I think we can all relate to. We're all being asked to do more with less. We're in this kind of fairly uncertain macroeconomic environment today with interest rates going up, and perhaps they're going to go up more, perhaps they're not. The markets, we don't know what they're going to do. And so folks are tightening the budgets a little bit, and but nevertheless still expected to deliver on these strategic initiatives. So being asked to do more with less, which is obviously always a challenge. Staffing, we know the job market is really tight right now, and so hiring and maintaining or keeping those really talented professionals that you need to deliver on these initiatives is also a challenge. For every job job seeker out there, there's just so many opportunities right now that really the job seekers are in the driving seat. So keeping staff, finding the right staff, and keeping them is a challenge. In time, obviously, we're all under time constraints. We're all dealing with competitors. This isn't. We don't have the luxury of months and years to kind of develop on our strategic initiatives. We need to move quickly, and so these things are kind of constraining some of the strategic initiatives our customers are looking to do. And then, of course, if you get into the data component here, we know that data is exploding. Applications are exploding. There's many new modern applications coming on the market over the next 2-3 years. This number here, 750 million new applications by 2026 is an IDC number. Whatever the actual number is, that's an estimate. Whatever the actual number is, the reality is that there's just more and more applications coming online. And this goes back to what I talked about earlier in terms of transforming and using software to deliver great experiences. Every company today is looking to use applications to deliver great experiences to the customers. And of course, almost all of those applications are going to have data associated with it. And so we're seeing an explosion of data. 181 zettabytes of data created and consumed every single day. That's a number I can't even conceive of. Let's just say that's a lot of data. It's going to continue to grow. And of course, I'm having trouble seeing my screen here. Sorry, guys. And the last point I wanted to make on this slide was proliferation at the edge. So it's expected that 50% of data will be generated at the edge. So not necessarily in your data center, not even in the cloud, but in edge environments could be manufacturing sites. It could be out in the field, wherever it happens to be. So there's just a lot of data, a lot of applications that are impacting organizations today. And if we go back to these strategic initiatives, the good news is all that data actually does offer some opportunities. So data allows you to build these new digital experiences. So whether that's personalizing the experience through analytics, or just enabling, really great, rich services that require kind of a data back end. So data really does offer a lot of opportunities in terms of building these new digital experiences. And there are technologies out there as well to help, as we like to say, let creators create. So you've got whatever business you're in, you're building new applications, you've got some really talented developers and other engineers building these experiences, and you want them to spend their time doing just that, building. And the good news is, while there's a lot of what we kind of refer to as tedious administration and management tasks that have to happen in the background to manage your databases and other technologies, automation can help really free up your creators and let them create and not have to worry about some of those things. And to do so responsibly and securely, of course, you've got, whenever there's data involved, you've got to be very concerned about security, compliance, and making sure that data is locked down, is not used inappropriately, is not accessed by people that shouldn't access it. And so, again, there are technologies and tools available to help you do that. So data really does provide a lot of opportunities and actually can help deliver on some of these strategic initiatives. And it's, we like to say, or we've heard the phrase, software is eating the world. Mark Andreessen, famously made that phrase many years ago, referring to something I was talking about, kind of all companies starting to use software to build great experiences. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. It could be insurance, retail, heck, it could be farming. You're looking to use software to build great experiences and to help drive your business. But I think what we're seeing is, and while that is true, as much as anything now, data is eating software. Data is so critical to how you build applications and make use of technology to serve your customers. So that gets us into kind of the meat of the presentation around databases as a service, and how does this kind of tie into what we were just talking about, the strategic initiatives that organizations are trying to deliver on. Well, there's a few trends, I think, that are specific to this kind of data explosion and databases that we kind of need to be aware of. So as we're building more and more applications, that inevitably leads to more and more databases being used, managed, and run in organizations. Almost every application requires a database. Modern applications that are using things like microservices architectures that are really being broken down into smaller functional services. Sometimes each service within a larger application has its own databases. So you could have an application that's running, that's made up of 10 different microservices that has 10 different databases supporting it in the back end. So we're just dealing with more and more databases than ever before. And that's just a fact. But we're also dealing with a larger variety of databases than ever before. If we think about 10, 12, 15 years ago and beyond, most organizations, most big enterprises anyway, tried to standardize on a single database platform. Could have been one of the major commercial vendors. And then they would hire a team of DBAs to manage and run those databases. And those are usually used to support enterprise applications, kind of back-end applications. But as we move into this world where organizations are building custom software, they're empowering their developers to build this software. They want to give them the tools they need to do their jobs. And developers, they want to use the tools that they want to use. And increasingly, those are, while yes, the more traditional commercial databases are still part of the conversation for sure. Increasingly, developers want to use other types of databases as well, both open source databases, could be relational, as well as non-relational databases. Document stores, key value stores, things like that. So they want to use the right database for the job. And the result is we're seeing a larger variety of databases being run in any given organization. So now you've got more databases than ever before and a larger variety of databases than ever before. Obviously, this is going to make it a little bit more challenging to manage all these databases and make them easily accessible to developers. And finally, we're seeing more and more organizations running their databases across different operating environments. Here at Nutanix, we conduct our Cloud Index survey every year. And it's something like 75% of the organizations that we talk to are planning to implement hybrid multi-cloud architecture, meaning they're going to be running workloads both on premises as well as in the public cloud, possibly other locations, the edge, colo facilities, things like that. Inevitably, you're going to have databases running across those environments if you're adopting such a hybrid multi-cloud strategy. So now you've got more databases than ever before, a larger variety than ever before, and now you're running them across different operating environments that have their different operating models. You've got to learn different APIs. There's different processes for managing your databases and application across these environments. And the bottom line is it's just very, very complex. Now, that's just the kind of the baseline. And inherently, managing all these databases is challenging. But what we're seeing is a lot of organizations are not really helping themselves with how they're doing it because they're doing database management in a very manual way. And again, tying this back to the strategic initiatives you're trying to achieve, if you're running your databases and managing them in a manual way, it's going to make it very challenging to actually deliver on some of those initiatives. So what do we mean by that? And what are some of the real, very specific challenges that we're hearing from organizations? And I think the most important one for this conversation is developers are being slowed down. Developers developers are being asked to build applications in a very agile, rapid fashion. To do that, they need access to the tools that they need to build those applications quickly. And we know databases are a key part of that application stack. And if you can't get access to a database in a timely way as a developer, it's going to make it very hard for you to develop and test new applications and then ship them into production. And unfortunately, most of the organizations that we talk to, when they come to us talking about their database challenges, they're manually providing databases to their developers, and this takes time. So developers are basically, they rely on DBAs, other IT staff to manually provide them their databases. This takes time. This is slowing them down. Or in some other cases, developers just take matters into their own hands and they'll go download an open source database, or they'll go use a cloud database without the knowledge of IT and security, and that can cause all sorts of other challenges. So the bottom line, developers are being slowed down, and that's slowing down innovation. And that's the biggest, one of the biggest impacts to poor database management. Now, if you talk about database management, you actually have to talk about the people who are managing the databases. So DBAs and increasingly operations teams, their job is to make sure all the databases are up and running properly, they're configured properly, that they're easily available to developers, that they're patched, all these other things that you have to do to manage a database, and they're simply overwhelmed. We talked earlier about more databases than ever before, and a variety of databases, larger variety of databases than ever before, and DBAs, frankly, are just overwhelmed. This leads to them kind of basically running around all day fighting fires. One database may be having performance problems. Another one, the patching didn't go properly. And so they're just running around database to database trying to keep up. That's not good for DBAs and ops teams who are feeling overwhelmed. That's not a great feeling, of course. And it also creates risk for the business of databases falling through the cracks. So if you've got hundreds of databases running in your organization and your DBAs can't keep up because they're trying to do this in a manual way, well, that leaves you open to risk. Maybe some databases aren't patched properly, leaving you open to security risks, or maybe some aren't configured properly, and that puts them at risk for performance issues or even availability. So DBAs are overwhelmed, and that creates risk. And of course, database licensing costs are skyrocketing. We know that commercial databases are expensive. These are very, fine-tuned, high-performance technologies. They are not inexpensive. And then if you start running more and more of them, of course, your bill's going to go up. So we're just seeing a really big increase in licensing costs. And we talked earlier about one of the constraints being budgets. So obviously there's some strain there between those two things. So we think the answer really is database as a service. And what do we mean by that? So three key things here. I think one is we're talking about a single unified data control plane across all your databases, whether they're running on-prem, in the cloud, or at the edge. We're talking about using automation. This is really key to handle some of those what you're doing now, manually day-to-day tasks, patching, cloning, other things that are important but not necessarily differentiating to the business. They have to get done, but they're not going to necessarily differentiate you from another competitor like a new application would. And so using automation to do that helps reduce the risk, because now you can apply these things consistently across all your databases, kind of reduces that challenge of things falling through the cracks, as we talked about. It's going to free up human capital, meaning your DBAs, your ops teams are going to have more time to work on higher value, more strategic initiatives. And ultimately, it's going to help you lower costs. And I think the third component that's really important is speeding delivery of data products via, quote unquote, as a service to accelerate time to market, meaning making it really simple for your developers to access the databases and the data services they need on their own without having to go through DBAs or another team. Sometimes today we see often it's a ticketed system, but in the back end, it's a very manual effort. But making this really simple, click a button, get a database. These are kind of the key components of database as a service as we see it. Of course, not all database as a service are created equal. Right now, if you look what's happening in the market, you see the cloud providers, they all have their own offerings in this space. They call them managed database services. Some call them database as a service. And these are really great services. However, they tend to only work on their particular cloud. And we know, as we talked about earlier, organizations are running databases across multiple clouds, multiple environments, including on-prem. And so there's a big gap there. Some of the database vendors themselves, they create their own managed services or database as a service, but understandably, they focus only on their database, not competing databases. And if you're using a variety of databases, this means you're going to have multiple operating models, perhaps multiple managed services if you so choose. But the result is, again, there's going to be gaps. There are a handful of smaller players in the multi-cloud database as a service segment of the market where they're providing this DBaaS across multiple clouds and sometimes covering multiple databases. But to be honest, most of these providers that we've seen tend to be less fully featured than some of the other database as a service providers. And they usually focus on open source, which is great, open source databases, but lack support for some of the commercial databases. And then the fourth area is hybrid multi-cloud database as a service. And this is where Nutanix plays. And this is where we're talking about managing multiple database engines, open source and commercial, relational and non-relational, and allowing you to do that across all your environments, on-prem, colo, one or more public clouds, the edge. And so that's where we focus our attention with our service called Nutanix Database Service, which really is one of the only hybrid multi-cloud database as a service offerings on the market today. Won't go into a ton of detail about all the features and capabilities, but I think what's important to understand about Nutanix Database Service is it really allows you to provide the kind of the full database lifecycle management. So from provisioning to cloning to caching, backing up, securing your databases, and even retiring them. Full database lifecycle and automating that in a way that frees up, again, that human capital so your DBAs can focus on more strategic things and also brings that consistency. Automation and control, this is a really important one where if you look at a lot of the public cloud providers, they lock down their database as a service. So you don't have access oftentimes to the underlying operating system and the database versions that you're running. And that can kind of limit the configurations you can provide to your developers. And that can be very limiting if your developers need a particular configuration. With Nutanix Database Service, we provide that automation of database lifecycle management, but we also allow you to maintain control. You choose the operating system you want to run. You choose the database version you want to run and make available to your developers. The third real critical component, self-service deployment. So delivering true database as a service, both on-prem, in the cloud, to your developers so they can click a button, get a database. It's as simple as that. That's what they're trying to do. They want to focus on building their applications. They don't want to spend time waiting for databases. And so Nutanix Database Service provides that. And then, of course, database protection. You can't overlook this. Making sure that your databases are properly backed up, you have disaster recovery, procedures and policies in place, and Nutanix can help you with that as well. And really the goal of all this is we are trying to help make databases an enabler to the digital success of our customers. And when you really kind of boil it down, you look at those features I just talked about, which are all great features, but ultimately as a enterprise, as a DBA, as a developer, you're thinking, okay, well, what does it really provide in terms of benefits? Why would I want to consider this? Number one, it's going to allow you to develop reliable, secure operations for all your databases. Again, this is a combination of the automation, which allows you to make sure you're applying the same capabilities across all your databases, so you can patch all your databases, you can make sure that they're configured the right way, and none of these databases are falling through the cracks. Empower developers, help them bring products to market faster. Rather than waiting days or weeks for a new database to build and test a new feature and ultimately ship it into production, developers can get access to the databases they need in hours, sometimes minutes, with Nutanix Database Service. It's going to allow your DBAs, your ops teams, to focus on higher value activities. So rather than having your DBAs, for example, spending their days running around trying to patch databases, they can spend more time on optimizing query performance and thinking about database architecture, things that are really going to help developers and ultimately your end users in terms of the performance of the applications and the capabilities, rather than some of the back-end things, which, again, very important, but not necessarily differentiated. And finally, we're going to help make open source databases enterprise ready and cost effective. We're seeing a lot of our customers, especially for modern software development, so the new cloud native applications they're building, want to use open source databases, things like Postgres. And the challenge there is, while these databases are, and there's a lot of great reasons to use these databases, that's why they're so popular, but as an open source database, in the DIY nature of open source, can be very challenging for our customers to not just get these things stood up, but then the day two operations, managing them and keeping them running in a way, it's more challenging than with a commercial database where you have a vendor supporting you. So we can help you do that. We can bring support, the support capabilities you need to your open source databases to make them enterprise ready and cost effective. And when we think about how do you actually make this happen, we've been thinking about this for a long time. We've worked with a lot of customers in this space, and this is really based on experience, and we've seen this work with our customers. And it's been a lot of trial and error. It hasn't been a straightforward journey, but we've learned a lot. And I think what we've learned is, one, you start with your dev and test database. So I think some people might think, well, is this database as a service thing going to work for my most critical databases? Well, it certainly can. But starting there is pretty high risk. So we suggest starting with your dev test databases. So these are the databases your developers use. They've got a new feature they want to build. They've got to test it, see if it's going to work in production. So they need a replica of a production database to see if it's going to work. Start with these databases, a little bit lower risk. Usually they're open source databases, as I mentioned, for these modern applications. And this allows you to kind of prove the value of NDB and really start to see that it's going to work. It's going to automate these database administration tasks in a way that's effective, and you can start to experiment with the developer self-service, making different configurations of various databases available to developers with just a click of a button. Then we suggest you kind of follow the application lifecycle. So, once you've kind of done your dev test as a developer, you're going to look to your pre-production, your production databases. And so moving those databases onto a database as a service platform like NDB, and really automating the full software development lifecycle, making databases a seamless part of that lifecycle. So some people call it database DevOps, but really making it an automated process that's really integrated with how developers actually build, test, and ship software. So that's really critical. I think these two components really focus on modern applications, probably perhaps most interesting to this audience. But in addition to that, you're building these modern apps, you've got new databases coming online, but you've also got lots of, if you're a big enterprise, you've got lots of other databases also running, supporting perhaps not the most, the sexiest applications, maybe it's your back office applications, could be CRM applications, finance, HR, whatever it might be. You've got lots of databases supporting them as well, what we call business critical applications and business critical databases. And when you've kind of proven it out with your new databases, then we suggest you start looking to moving some of those business critical databases onto the platform. And again, you're going to reduce risk across these workloads, making them much more reliable, which of course is what everybody's looking for in terms of their applications. And then finally, kind of the fourth step is that's when you start to look at your really mission critical databases, your most high performance, your databases with the most high performance requirements. These are the databases that are really, perhaps they're generating a ton of revenue for your organization. If they go down, it's going to be millions of dollars. Once you've kind of proven this out through this journey, that's when you start to take those on. And the result ultimately is a full automated modern database platform that's providing these services for the full database lifecycle from your test dev all the way up to your mission critical database. And what we've seen with customers, a number of great outcomes. We did work with an analyst firm to research and talk to some of our customers and see what kind of results they were getting. And just some examples, they're seeing a massive decrease in storage requirements for their copies and backups. So this is when you're cloning databases, you're creating these test dev databases, which can multiply quickly. The storage requirements can get very onerous. But we help you do this in a way that keeps those costs down. I think this one really important. The average increase in speed of database deployment, 97%. So this is the time it takes from when a developer requests a database till they have that database available to them to start testing their applications. And that's key to getting applications and new services to market faster. And so this one, I always talk about this one. I think this is really one of the most important things to think about in terms of databases and application development. And ultimately, the return on investment, we're seeing a 291% ROI and a payback of just 6 months. So, I think these results kind of speak for themselves. I always say customers are your best spokespeople. These kind of capabilities, these kind of outcomes is what we're seeing in the real world with our customers. And I would request everybody take a look at Nutanix Database Service. Would love to hear from you, hear more about what you're working on, what your database challenges are, see if these kind of line up. We're always looking to learn from our customers. That's how we get better. Thank you for your time. I'd love to take some questions.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great point, learning as we go through these conversations. So these interactive opportunities are so exciting. And we did get some great questions coming in. Jeff, I want to tell you, I really appreciated that. I think the point around the developers getting slowed down really resonated with a lot of folks out there as well, whether they are developers or they manage developers. That's something that speaks to everyone here. So I really appreciate that. I do want to get into some questions, but first I'm going to put up a poll here. We have a question for all of you. What additional information would you like to get about the Nutanix solution? So obviously we got a lot of great information from Jeff. There's lots more to dig into, lots more to explore, and a lot of great ways to do that. So click on the poll right here, and the Nutanix team will send you an email. Make sure that you get exactly the info that you need without you having to lift a finger. So the poll is your easy button today. You guys click on that, and we're going to dive into some questions. You ready to get into a few questions here from the audience, Jeff?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. I like this one. What trends are you seeing in terms of the different types of database engines being used for modern development?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, developers, the developers want to use the tools that are going to be the best tools for the job.
Right.
Kind of this one size fits all database is not really kind of a thing anymore. And so you're seeing all types of databases out there. But I think if I had to pick, a couple specific trends, I think one is I mentioned earlier Postgres. That tends to be the database we see most often developers using to build modern applications when they require a relational database. Postgres is not really a new database. It's been around for 30 plus years, but it's got a vibrant community. New features are being built all the time. And I think that's what keeps it so relevant. And so that's probably number one, the biggest trend I'm seeing. Of course, there are others. MongoDB is another one we see that is very popular with developers. That's a non-relational open source database. So I'd say that's probably the biggest trend. But of course, these other databases aren't going away. I mean, we still see new applications being built on things like Microsoft SQL Server. So it's really that variety of databases we talked about earlier. That's really the biggest trend, I guess, if I had to boil it down. There's just so many different databases out there, and developers, you're paying these developers a lot of money. They're really talented. They're hard to find. You want to give them the tools that they need to do their jobs. And so that's really what this boils down to.
I can picture there's a few people out there that just, going amen and clapping and nodding along with that statement. Jeff, I really wish we could keep going, honestly, because there's clearly a lot more to dig into here, and we have some great questions still rolling in. We are going to have to leave it there in the interest of time. If you do have a little bit of time left in your day, Jeff, you can stick around on live chat. And then for everyone out there that does ask a question that we don't get to over live chat or didn't discuss in the live Q&A, we will make sure that you get some answers back from Nutanix. Jeff, before you leave us, though, if somebody out there is really itching to get started, wants to jump in, ready to learn more, what do you recommend as their first step to getting to know Nutanix?
Yeah, I would suggest, head over to Nutanix.com. You'll see a nice purple button for test drive. Click that button and you can play with Nutanix Database Service. Check it out for yourself, see how it works, see if it resonates with some of the challenges you have, and then reach out to us. There's multiple ways you can send an email. There's ways to contact us on the website. I would suggest doing that right away, but definitely test drive is a great way to get started.
Perfect. And we've actually made it even easier because we've got the test drive linked right there in the handouts tab for all of you. So please make sure that you click on that link, go get that test drive. Jeff, I always think that looks like the Stig. I know it's not the Stig, but it always reminds me of Top Gear when I go look at your website. It makes me want to go fast, so I like that.
Nice.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's been a lot of fun chatting with you.
Likewise. Thanks, everyone.
All right, so all of you out there who clicked on the poll, keep that up. Keep those clicks coming. Click on that handout tab, get that test drive booked. Keep those questions coming in. We are going to make sure that you get some answers. And in the meantime, you know what that means. It is time for a prize giveaway. So we have a $300 Amazon gift card that we will be giving away to a lucky winner here with us at the summit. Up next, the $300 Amazon gift card going to Justin Pat of Washington. Justin Pat of Washington, you have won a $300 Amazon gift card. Congratulations. And as always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap the summit. Now, don't forget, still lots more chances to win those prizes today. I know you're counting along at home. There's lots we haven't given away, so stay tuned for that. And we've got those $300 Amazon gift cards coming at you, as I said, every 30 minutes. All right, my friends, well, let's keep things rolling in our awesome and jam-packed summit today because we have another exciting session in the wings for you all. I am so excited to introduce you all to our next presenter on the virtual summit, and that is Wolfgang Gerlich, Advisory CISO at Cisco Secure for Duo Security. All right, Wolfgang, well, thank you so much for being here with us today. Now, I have to say, I looked ahead at Wolfgang's slides. I love the title of this presentation. I'm very excited. I'm not going to give it away, but I know you're all really going to enjoy this chat. So, Wolfgang, I'm going to hand the platform right on over to you. Take it away.
Hello, and thank you for joining this session, Zero Trust with Zero Fluff in 15 minutes. My name is Wolf Gorlick. I am an advisory CISO with Cisco Secure. And today, I'm going to be covering where are we at with Zero Trust? What does the data show? What's the state of adoption? What are some of the accelerators? And then from there, we'll go into what are some of the mistakes? I'm concerned that at a high level, we may be repeating some of our historic mistakes in this new architecture. So we'll cover that, and then we'll round out our time together with the leading edge of Zero Trust. When I say no fluff, I mean no fluff. I mean no horror stories and no warnings about how many breaches have happened and how, right? Not that. No histories. I'm not going to tell you about the history of Zero Trust going all the way back to our time as hunter-gatherers, and no reminding you that things have changed. Man, have they changed. No, we know all that. What I think is really interesting is none of that. It's the actual boots on the ground. It's the actual people doing work. It's the actual implementation of these principles. It's the actual movement from when I started this. I started doing Zero Trust workshops in 2020. And at the time, from 2019 to 2020, a lot of the conversation was, isn't Zero Trust kind of just a buzzword? Then today, in 2023, we see just how many organizations have adopted these set of principles. So you see a great increase in people reporting mature implementations. You see a great increase in people reporting they're making progress or have projects going on. We see this globally. Certainly some industries are more ahead than others. The executive order has pushed the federal agency space in the United States to be in the lead, of course, with Zero Trust. Telecoms, who have long had a history of device identity and anti-fraud patterns, have long been the lead. Tech companies that were cloud first and were already well positioned to adopt these principles have long been in the lead. But this idea that it's a buzzword has really gone by the wayside in the past few years. You may be wondering where this data point comes from. It comes from the Guide to Zero Trust Maturity. This is a field guide that's up on Cisco's website. The data is from three sources. One, those workshops I mentioned. So I was able to give a lot of anecdotal information about how we've seen things shift. Another, of course, is Cisco's own journey to Zero Trust. So as we've been living, breathing, and feeling what this is like, we've been able to share that out. But more broadly, quantitatively, those numbers come from the Scientia study, which is an annual study done with Cisco by the Scientia, where they talk to 5,000 practitioners, 26, 27 countries, and say, hey, what are you doing? And what works? What outcomes are you getting? And, I think we all sort of know what works in security. I think I felt that I know. You probably are hearing this going, I know what works. But there's always surprises. And one of the surprises was this number here. It's not surprising that Zero Trust is definitely correlated with being in the cloud, right? Organizations that report being mature with Zero Trust are more than twice as likely to report being in the cloud. That doesn't surprise me, probably doesn't surprise you. What does surprise me is the on-prem side of that. Look how much infrastructure is being supported that is not in the cloud. Think about how often we rush out with security capabilities. Why? Because everyone's in the cloud, or everyone's adopting this, or this is the new hotness, right? Suddenly containers are things, so we need container-based security. And yet, because of those discussions, it can create a false impression that that control solves everything, when the reality is most environments still have a very large footprint in legacy technology, a very large footprint in traditional ways of delivering services. If you're in the cloud, though, things are a little bit easier. Things are also a little bit easier if you have a modern infrastructure, modern directory services, and what have you. If you have a consolidated directory services or consolidated environments, you see the organizations that are mature in Zero Trust are more than twice as likely to report being in the cloud, being modern, being consolidated. It does not mean everything's consolidated. It does not mean if you're not in the cloud, you can't go there. It does not mean if you're not completely consolidated and federated from an identities perspective, you can't move forward. It simply means if I've got a degree of applications that are in that spot, maybe I've got 1 in every 10 of my SaaS apps are delivered over SSO, consolidated in a modern way to a SaaS app. Awesome. That's a great scope for applying Zero Trust, because we know that we can accelerate and realize Zero Trust in a very quick and efficient manner there. But the key takeaway here is that Zero Trust today is being deployed with a hybrid security architecture. So keep a real close eye on where Zero Trust isn't. Where it is, we're going to have a greater degree of control and a greater degree of options on how we can extend trust or revoke trust. Where it's not, we still need to keep an eye on those environments and have a plan for dealing with them. Which brings me to old mistakes. When we rolled out multi-factor 10 years ago, what we started to see was that wherever there wasn't multi-factor, it was a legacy protocol, right? You would authenticate, the adversary would authenticate there, and then use that authentication point to pivot in the environment. Wherever there was not a control, that's where the adversary went. There are plenty of examples that you have probably heard where, oh, the breach happened because there was no control in this test environment, or the breach happened because this legacy protocol did not support multi-factor. So we know that the adversaries are going to go where we aren't. We also know that once we've rolled out a control, the adversaries get better. One of the things I'm very fond of saying is that all a better mousetrap does is breed better mice. All any control will do is buy us some time before the adversaries are incentivized to get better. Back to multi-factor, we're seeing that today. Now that we've got 80-90% of people using multi-factor, adversaries are incentivized to work around it, and we start seeing push fatigue attacks. We start seeing proxied attacks, where previously if they ran into that control, they go, meh, it's probably not worth it. I'm going to work around it. Now today they're like, oh, I've got ways to break through this. Why I say this is, looking forward, we need to be prepared to say, wherever we put a control in place, the adversaries are going to be incentivized once that control reaches critical mass. Once we have zero trust on 80% of things, adversaries are going to be very incentivized to work around those controls. All better mousetraps do is breed better mice. The other past mistake that we're making that I'm very concerned about goes back to John Kindervag's original paper on zero trust. No more chewy centers. If you remember this architecture pattern, it was crunchy exterior, chewy interior. Crunchy exterior, when we hit that crunch, that boundary, that trust boundary, we had to be inspected by policy before we got in. Once we passed that policy, we're in the chewy interior and we could do whatever we wanted to. Why? Because most of the risk was outside, made sense. And why overcomplicate managing inside? Makes sense for the time, for a time. Again, until we got critical mass in terms of adoption. How are we making those policy decisions? We're making them in the network. We're making them at the firewall level. We're doing things like source and destination, IP address, and port address. We were making those policy decisions. Maybe we enriched a little bit with some reputation data, some context, but for the most part, that was what we were limited to. I want you to think about that idea of a trust boundary and policy enforcement getting you into an environment, once you're in an environment with no additional controls. Keep that in your mind as I show you this next slide. This is, of course, the Zero Trust architecture from NIST 800-207. This is also a very high-level reference architecture we've repeated 1,000,001 different places as Zero Trust is rolled out. Some user is on some managed device, and they're connecting through a policy engine to get to a resource, a SaaS app, or a internal application. We've moved that policy engine up the stack, so we're now doing it at the time of application request. We are running that through every single request, which is good, so it's more continuous as opposed to point in time. We are looking at greater signals of trust, but once we're in, right? Once we're in that application, we're in that chewy center. And so that is an area where we need to keep a real close eye on, because in a very real way, up the stack, a new generation, we're repeating that crunchy and chewy model. All that's to say, when you think about your trust boundaries, strengthen zero trust where it makes sense, and where zero trust is not applicable or it's out of scope, have an initiative in place to still strengthen that control, still shore up those trust boundaries. Because we know if it's in scope for zero trust, we're going to harden it. It's going to be great. It's going to have tremendous stopping power for the adversary. We also know what's out of scope is where the adversaries are going to go. Let's talk next about the leading edge of zero trust. I want to pull forward a couple different things under the context of these zero trust principles connecting to a resource. First off, that first step of it, We want to deepen the set of policies we're using to do risk-based authentication. One of the main ways that's emerging is location. And I don't mean trust by network location. We know that's bad. But trust by where a person is. If they're at home, how do we know that they're at home? One of the ways we can do this is with Wi-Fi fingerprinting. We say, oh, your network looks like your network. And I'm not collecting any information about your location. I'm simply fingerprinting it and allowing you in. Another area that's leading edge in this area is FIDO2 and stronger levels of authentication. Why? Because push fatigue is a thing. Why? Because passwordless is actually easier. And in a very real way, passwordless can become a user benefit in a zero trust implementation. In the session itself, what happens if the user does something that they shouldn't within that application? We want the application to know, detect, and respond and react. We're seeing SaaS applications with built-in DLP. We're seeing SaaS application with built-in EUBA, right? Data loss prevention, user behavior analytics, exposing that back out so that when something occurs that's a shared signal we can all consume is really key. I'd point you to sharedsignals.guide for more information. But shared signals are what's going to help us stop that Chewy center, because the applications themselves then become part of our security program. They become part of our detective control, which is super cool when you think about it. So if you look backward and look forward, look at ways that we can ensure we're not repeating that crunchy and chewy interior. Look for ways that we can get ahead of where adversaries are going to go. And now is really the time to have that conversation, right? Because as so many of us are building out our roadmaps for zero trust and looking at zero trust, certainly as a set of principles, certainly as a way of applying those principles to achieve a specific set of use cases, but also as a set of capabilities and technologies that are coming together to provide a consistent experience for users. Hopefully not frustrating them, hopefully providing them a great user experience. Now's the time to think about this lineup and get prepared for what happens next. What happens next when zero trust is everywhere and adversaries are monetized to work around it? What happens next when, if we're not careful, we repeat a crunchy exterior, chewy interior? What happens next when our security boundaries are tested where zero trust isn't? That's what we need to be planning for today. With that, I want to thank you very much. If you'd like to know more about what I've talked about here, feel free to check out the maturity guide or join us on one of our workshops. I've been Wolfgang Gorlick for Cisco Secure.
All right. Well, that was a lot of fun. I really like that concept of digging into something with zero fluff and zero trust. Although I have to say, you know what? As a storyteller myself, I'm a fan of the fluff. So it goes either way. Sometimes you want to get right to it. Sometimes you want to play around in the fluff. All right. Well, either way, I think we all learned something awesome from that presentation. I do want to address, TJ asked a question during the break about whether or not there'd be a recording of the summit. For those of you that don't know, we will send out a recording to everybody here in the audience today. And that's important because I want you guys to be able to stay focused and stay in the moment and not feel like you have to be taking screenshots or writing things down constantly. I mean, I do that as well. But just know that you'll get that on demand recording. So if you need to call something back, you will have the opportunity to go back to it later and kind of revisit some of these ideas or share some of these ideas. Now, another great way that you can do that is by clicking on the poll. So what additional information would you like to get about the Cisco solution? Let them know right now what they can put in your email inbox, what would be helpful for you in terms of following up, learning a little bit more about Cisco. So click on that poll there. Also, thank you to everyone who's getting some great questions in. We are going to keep things moving right along here, but just keep in mind that all of your questions are seen and heard, and you will get responses back. So please do keep those coming in. And while you're clicking on the poll and asking questions and getting the handout, also another great reminder to visit that handout tab. In this case, there's a zero trust evaluation guide for the workforce that you can download. I love this. You're going to get into user trust. You're going to get into device visibility. You're going to get into device trust. Lots more. So be sure that you've got that. Open that tab now and download that resource. Make sure you've got that for later.
All right, now we're going to give away another prize. We have a $300 Amazon gift card on the table next. You do need to be here live and present with us at the summit, and our next winner of a $300 Amazon gift card is John Adeletta of Texas. John Adeletta of Texas, congratulations. You have won a $300 Amazon gift card, so congratulations to you. We will be in touch about claiming that after we wrap up. Now, lots more chances left to win, lots of prizes ahead of us, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, we are going to keep things moving right along because we have another awesome presentation in the wings for you all. Now, those of you who are regulars on the MegaCast, you will know that we are in for a real treat because we are bringing back the dynamic duo, and that is, of course, John Spiegel, Director of Strategy and Field CTO, and Jay Tilson, Director of Strategy and Field CTO, both at Access Security. These guys are always so fascinating to listen to. John and Jay, thank you so much for being back here with us again on the summit. I always get a lot out of our conversations. I know today's is going to be no exception, and we want to leave some time for Q&A at the end. So Jay, I think you're going to kick things off for us today. I will step back and hand things on over to you. Take it away, Jay.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. In this session, we are going to talk about how SSE can help you solve your secure access challenges today, for the next decade, and beyond. Before we get started, let me just introduce you to your host today. My name is Jay Tilson, and I am joined by my colleague and friend, John Spiegel. John hates me saying this, but together we have over 50 years of enterprise experience running large infrastructure and security teams. We spent most of our careers sitting in your chairs and have experienced your daily challenges, not just the technical challenges, but the cultural, budget and resource challenges also. Recently, we left the enterprise space and moved to a company called Axis, which is now part of HPE Aruba Networking, because we both believe networking and security are marred in complexity. Stitching together solutions that worked in the early 2000s no longer works in this new world of the hybrid workforce. We found that this approach created more challenges, and when deployed, it looked like a game of mousetrap, and we both believe there are better ways in doing it today. I think we all have to agree that change isn't coming, but that is already here. Our users are now mobile, accessing systems and data from everywhere, including their homes, the office, and places like coffee shops. More and more applications have migrated to the cloud, and the trend isn't stopping. If anything, it's increasing. There is also more devices than ever before. We have IoT devices, smart devices, BYOD, and the number is continuing to increase at an alarming rate. Along with these changes come more cyber threats from an increasing number of strategic cyber criminals. There was a 270% increase in social engineering attacks and a 1,500 increase in attacks against risky VPNs in 2021 alone. And ransomware was named the top threat type, with the number of attacks increasing over 140% in the second half of the year alone. All of the top analysts expect these attacks to continue to grow more and more through the next decade.
Jay rightly mentions the way we work, the way we consume IT has changed, but so has the ability of the bad cyber actor to exploit it. Thus, what is needed is networking and security need to evolve and change as well. But there's something else needed: simplicity. The tools of the past have created complexity and vendor sprawl. Said another way, complexity is the friend of the bad cyber actor. For security to be successful, we need to look forward on how to simplify. For a lens into the future, the Gartner Hype Cycle provides solid optics. If you're not familiar with it, Gartner publishes their Hype Cycle almost yearly. It's a good tool to measure the life cycle of a technology and where it's going. So let's focus on the elements of SSE, mainly ZTNA, SWIG, and CASB. As we can see, the individual building blocks of ZTNA, CASB, and SWIG are all considered mature technologies, technologies you need to be investing in now. But what has changed is how they're packaged. In the past, these individual components were purchased as solo items. This creates complexity, which is the friend of the bad cyber actor. The new approach is to bundle these things as a platform. So what does that provide? Simplicity. It's the superhero that security needs. So let's dive into one of them, SASE. SASE is also known as Secure Access Service Edge. The term was coined by Gartner in 2019. The objective was to solve the dilemma faced with every network and security engineer when asked to deploy a new application. What do I favor? Do I favor speed or do I favor security? And you could only choose one. Generally, the answer was speed, because that equals employee performance. With SASE, you can have both. This is done through something called points of presence, where we extend a network and security fabric as close to the user or resource as possible. We can overcome the dilemma. So how is SASE made up? It's essentially two technology stacks. On one side, you see the WAN edge, and on the other, it's the security side, or what is known as SSE. How is this solution being adopted? Well, we went out and did a survey. And companies are looking to move to this model. Why? It consolidates their vendor landscape and offers simplicity, which is the friend of security. How is it being adopted? Well, 41% say they are adopting SSE by the end of 2022. And 75% said that they will adopt it in the next year or so.
Recently, Axis, in partnership with Cybersecurity Insiders, conducted the first ever research on SSE adoption. The report has some very good insights and is well worth a read, but for this presentation I'm going to pull out just a few of my key takeaways. Firstly, the report shows that both elements of SASE, the WAN edge services, and SSE are on the rise, which backs up what we have just discussed. Secondly, it's interesting to note that SSE is seen as a strategic initiative to secure the workforce, with 39% of respondents viewing it as the most important part of their Zero Trust strategy, even over identity providers and endpoint security. Lastly, and I think more importantly, as companies look to implement SASE, 67% of businesses plan to start the implementation with SSE versus WAN Service Edge. This shows that the security team is gaining traction against the network team, and the CISO is starting to gain power. So let's just remind ourselves about the three approaches in which we can secure our workforce of today. Firstly, we have the hub and spoke design. This is a progression from the old castle and moat design where everyone was inside the perimeter, but this design still focuses on having on-premise security, even though users and their data are starting to move to the cloud. With this design, there is still a heavy reliance on MPLS and internal data centers. In my experience, this model is complex to configure and to administrate. You need to feed and water the applications to ensure they remain secure, and you also have to go through hardware renewal cycles. Additional to this, you have to also patch your systems to ensure they are protected against attack. Another option is virtualized firewalls. This is an evolution of the hub and spoke design, moving some of your legacy-based security systems that used to run on hardware to cloud-based solutions. The aim here is to remove some of the burdens of keeping systems secure. However, in a lot of cases, this means backhauling internet traffic to your corporate networking data center. This design is supposed to make things simpler to manage, but in my experience, it often leads to further complexity and cost. Then there is SSE. In my mind, this is the design of the future. This is delivering all of your connectivity and security tools from the cloud. Gone are the days of patching your systems, and SSE is going to stand side by side with you in the battle against the bad guys.
So let's take a look at Axis Atmos. The platform was designed day one to bring together networking and security. It's about harmonizing, in the past, a symphony of individual players and bringing them together as a unit. If you think about it, how the enterprise purchased their technologies in the past, they had one vendor for networking, another for security, and maybe a third for their WAN, maybe a fourth for DLP, and then finally another vendor for cloud security controls. As we all know, this leads to operational complexity, high cost, and ultimately poor security outcomes. Access, on the other hand, starts with a clean slate. It brings together a concept called adaptive trust. Instead of placing the employee, the third party, and their device directly on the network, Access first starts with a series of checks. It checks the identity of the requester, the state of the device, and what is the state of the machine. It then balances it with requests for the application and data. If the calculation doesn't add up, the user or third party is not granted access to the application. Building on this concept of adaptive trust, Atmos provides global reach with over 500 network edges for services like CASB, SWIG, and ZTNA. It brings together what was previously individual point solutions into a single integrated platform delivered from the cloud. It enables remote access for employees, office workers, and critical third-party resources. So let's break down these services. As you dive deeper into SSE solutions, you'll find that each solution emphasizes a different technology area. It could be SWIG, as that company started there, or maybe their origins were in the CASB space, or maybe it was firewalling. At Access Security, we take a different approach. We believe the future is about transitioning to a security strategy based on zero trust. Only provide the resources necessary to perform a function, nothing more, nothing less, and then vigilantly watch for indicators of change in a negative manner. We built our platform to deliver zero trust network access. The strategy is at the center of everything we do. It's the foundation we built our technology on. The future is about delivering secured access for applications, whether they're in the cloud or in your private data center. Services must be delivered in a same manner, no matter the location, with security checks like MFA, device posture checks, matched with the request for data and application based on business policy. We've solved this problem in an elegant manner for both your employees and those critical to secure third parties. Building upon the Zero Trust Access foundation, Access then adds features to our platform. Could be Secure Web Gateway, which is fundamental in securing your employees. Or maybe it's SaaS applications. You want to secure those. We've added a Cloud Access Broker or CASB. Or maybe you want to understand digital experience or your user experience. How's the application performing? Where's the problem? With digital experience monitoring, we can provide that. Quickly uncover where an application issue is. Is it the network, the device, the application? If so, DEM has you covered.
So you may ask, what are the benefits of Access Atmos SSE? Firstly, it increases your security posture by providing zero trust access to all services and applications. You eliminate your attack surface and reduce your exposure. You also get to enforce least privilege access to all applications and services, including private applications, SaaS applications, and the internet. This will help you protect your business against ransomware and data loss. Secondly, you deliver the best experience possible for end users and IT administrators. End users receive quick, seamless access to applications, services, and data every time because of our intelligent smart routing across over 1,000 edge locations. Also, IT administrators can control access centrally and granularly, making it easy to secure the business from a holistic perspective. Lastly, you optimize your business with one solution for all your secure access needs. You get to simplify and unify networking and security functions and minimize complexity by reducing the number of point product solutions you have in use. Additionally, you save money by reducing reliance on appliance-based security solutions, and you can effortlessly scale with our cloud-delivered platform.
And customers, they are the key. Their challenges are similar to yours. For instance, take the city of San Jose. Their challenge is the hybrid workforce. Like many in the post-pandemic world, They embraced remote work, but also know the power of creating great culture. The city adopted a 3-day remote, 2-day in the office approach. This blend allows them to provide the best of both worlds. But if you don't have an application delivery mechanism to support it, worker productivity declines. After conducting an extensive search, the City of San Jose selected Access Security as their platform. Why? Simplicity, as well as the ability to support challenging zero trust protocols like voice over IP, ICMP, and server-initiated protocols that allow patching of remote systems. For them, the days of VPN are gone. Or it could be like Procter & Gamble. Their challenge, third-party access. Being one of the largest multinationals out there, their base of contractors was high. Their need was how to secure them, how to protect their intellectual property. In the past, they sent out thousands of laptops. Turn time to onboard a contractor was high, as well as the cost. By moving to Access, Procter & Gamble was able to leverage our agentless approach. This meant their contractors could now leverage a BYOD solution. Results, over $10 million saved, and time to value went from 24 days down to 24 hours. Return on investment, sub 1 month. Lastly, VisionWorks, a national optical chain. I'm sure you've heard of them. Their challenge was legacy hardware. Like many companies, they were sending their network traffic back to their data center to have the security treatments done. But this hairpinning of traffic slowed down their business, as well as was expensive from a hardware proposition. By moving to Access, they were able to reduce their hardware investment, optimize their networks, as well as secure their clinics. The return on investment was quick and was realized as fast as the deployment looked less than a week. 700 stores in a matter of days. Traffic optimized with zero trust network security. And visibility provided by digital experience monitoring. Wins all around.
So where do you go from here? I would like to make it clear that making the move to SASE is a journey and that we are here to support you. Where do you start, you may ask? Well, that's up to you. It's about solving your critical business challenges. Maybe your need is connecting your branch or your retail locations to improve connectivity and security. If so, then start with Aruba's best-in-class SD-WAN solution, Edge Connect. Or maybe your challenge is how to secure your remote workforce or third-party contractors. If so, then start with the most innovative SSE platform available, Axis Atmos, now powered by HPE. If you choose SSE as your first step, then we recommend you start with ZTNA. It's the foundation, it's what's going to give you that quick win and help you see immediate value. The idea is to standardize connectivity from a private application perspective. Then you can start to layer on additional SSE capabilities such as the Secure Web Gateway. It's worth noting that Axis ZTNA and SWIG are integrated. They are from the same code base. They are not separate UIs. It's a new rule in a policy and that's it. Once you've done that, you can standardize access for all your internal and external or internet access traffic. Then you can add on CASB for SaaS security. At Access, we see CASB as a function or feature of SWIG and not a separate product. Next, take the same approach you took for the user application perspective and apply it to workloads. You can then handle the east-west traffic as well from a segmentation point of view. One of our customers' big challenges is that they have to deal with all the time is speed. Many are trying to decide, do we have a different vendor for CASB, a different vendor for SWIG, a different vendor for ZTNA, and then have a SIEM, etc. Our push has always been to think about consolidation. There is no God platform out there, but you want to start by standardizing some of the elements of SSE. So that's ZTNA, SWIG, and CASB elements that you want to look for in a single solution, and we offer that. Our platform started with ZTNA, and the other elements of the SSE stack are features and not separate products. This helps our customers minimize their management complexities that come with having too many point products. Finally, bring it all together. Transform your branch, manufacturing location, or retail location. Unburden yourself from legacy connectivity that places a speed bump from moving to SaaS or cloud. Make the move to SD-WAN with Edge Connect. The benefit will be lower costs, higher bandwidth, increased business agility, and lower operating costs. Finally, to complete the journey, add on office security through the Aruba ClearPass technology. Dynamically segment your network and protect vulnerable IoT assets. We would like to thank everyone for joining us today. We really hope you found this session useful. If you would like to discuss what you have heard, then please feel free to scan the QR code on the screen or contact us directly. You can also reach out to us at www.accesssecurity.com. And thank you.
Well, thank you, Jay and John, and what a great presentation. And I think John is going to stick around and answer some audience questions, so we're going to jump into that in just a second. But first, I do want to point out that we have a poll question up on the screen for you all. What additional information would you like to get about the Access Security solution? Obviously, lots more to dig into than we've been able to cover in the last 20 minutes or so, so please do click on that poll and let the team know how they can follow up with you. While you're doing that, John and I are going to dig into some questions here. You know, we got a comment, John, right as Jay was saying about reducing complexity. Somebody wrote in and said, boy, Zero Trust feels complex. And I thought that was perfect timing. So simplicity is a big takeaway. And I'm excited to dig in a little bit more. Are you ready to get into some questions?
Let's get into it.
Let's do it. All right, well, let's start with this one here. What role does Access play in driving the adoption of intelligent video analytics and edge computing in the field of surveillance? And how do these technologies contribute to proactive security monitoring and faster incident response? Big question from Holden there.
Ooh, we don't really do video surveillance. Sometimes we get confused with another company called Access that's involved in the camera space. That's not us. We actually do security. Our goal is to bring network and security together in an elegant manner. In terms of application performance, we can certainly help in that area through digital experience monitoring. Essentially what it does is it breaks down where the problem may be, and in the past that involves multiple troubleshooting tools, multiple engineers to narrow down where a problem is. We do it through a software-oriented way. We take all the telemetry that goes through our system and can easily break down where a problem is. Is it the device? Is it the network? Or is it the most hard thing to troubleshoot, your SaaS provider? Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they have a front-end process that has a runaway CPU and it's causing poor application performance. We can certainly help you with that.
Awesome. All right. Well, glad we got into that in case anyone else was confused about that distinction. How about this question here? Does Access have any federal government clients? And really in particular, because compliance comes up a lot, has the solution been assessed against the upcoming CMMC requirements and for DoD contractors? Yeah.
So Access Security is or was a startup before HPE Aruba purchased us. At the time, no, we do not have any federal contracts or federal customers. It was something we're engaged in. We have started the FedRAMP process. So now that we're a part of the larger HPE and Aruba mothership, I think that's going to come really quick. So won't be a matter of time now.
Awesome. We did actually get a question about that. Somebody wrote in to say congrats on your acquisition. But is there anything that we need to know about the integration with Access and Aruba SD-WAN offering?
Yeah, so that's one of the items we did talk about briefly in the presentation, this concept of SASE, that Gartner framework that they came out with in 2019, essentially to bring together networking and security. And that's exactly what we're looking to do is bring together the best-in-class SD-WAN solution, which was known formerly as Silver Peak, currently known as Edge Connect in Aruba, with what we describe as the most innovative SSE solution on the market, and that's Access Security. The advantage is we don't have the technical debt that many of the competitors out there in the SSE landscape have. So for us to bring together those two products is going to be a relatively quick and fast process. The benefits for that is vendor consolidation. It is also integration. It is also simplicity, and for the operator, ease of use. So many benefits to where we're headed, and it's called a unified SASE approach.
Awesome. All right. Lots of cool things on the horizon. We're running a bit short on time, and I'm going to sneak in this last question here from Elena. How does Axis mitigate the risk of lateral movement and privilege escalation within the network when implementing ZTNA, considering the zero trust philosophy?
Absolutely. And what we do is we essentially broker that connection. So we're sitting in line between that resource requesting access to an application or data, and we're only serving up just the right amount of application access that's required, and that's based on business policy. So that can include identity, it can include the device posture. We can check and see, what is the patch level of the device? Does it have certificates? Has something changed during the application request or even throughout the entire session? We can sever that connection in the moment. Is there a threat? Is there malware that we've detected coming forth through that device? So lots of checks. The goal absolutely is to eliminate that lateral movement, because anytime you have lateral movement, that means that someone is reconning your network, and unfortunately, a lot of times that results in a bad case of ransomware or similar type activity. So our goal is to eliminate that lateral movement.
I like that Goldilocks approach. Just enough, not too much. That's perfect.
Exactly.
John, I have to say, I wish we could keep going with this, because there's so much more to cover. We are going to have to leave it there. But if somebody is really excited, wants to learn a little bit more about Axis Security, what do you recommend as their first step?
Go to our website, axissecurity.com, or go check out the Aruba Networks website. Look for Unified SASE. Likewise, you can hit myself up, John Spiegel, on LinkedIn, as well as Jay Tilson on LinkedIn. We love to field those questions. And then we also offer Jay and I also do another thing called the SSE Forum. And it's a place where we're vendor neutral, agnostic. We talk about the space. We talk about how to adopt the technologies. So go check out the SSE Forum. Again, it's out there on LinkedIn.
I love that. And John, I have to say, as I mentioned at the top, you and Jay are regulars on our MegaCast, EcoCast summits, and I always learn so much from you both. So thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, and to all of you out there who clicked on the poll, thanks for that. Please do keep clicking. Please let Axis Security know how they can follow up with you, what additional information you'd like to get. Keep those questions coming in too, because we'll either get back to you on live chat today. We've got the team working busily behind the scenes to get you some answers, and whatever they don't get to during our summit today live, we will make sure they follow up in email. So keep those questions rolling in. And hey, if you forgot, there is still that $50 best question gift card that we give away from each session. I feel like I haven't hyped that up enough. There's a $50 gift card that we're giving away to the best question asked in each one of our sessions. So please keep those questions coming in, because you are entered to win that $50 Amazon gift card just by asking a question. Plus, hey, it just adds to the whole fun of our day. That's why we're here, right? Is the conversations, the asking of questions, and having a good time together. So keep those coming. I'm also going to remind you about the handouts tab. Make sure that you head on over and download the handout, Atmos at a Glance. This is a perfect way to follow up on all the info that we just got from Jay and John. So be sure that you've downloaded that. Hold on to that after we wrap. Now, I also have a prize giveaway to get through while you're downloading handouts, clicking on polls, and asking questions. So we are going to do both a $300 Amazon gift card, and I'm going to give away 2 AirPod Max headphones. So our very next $300 Amazon gift card going to someone who is here live and present at the summit, and that someone is Santo Campione. Santo Campione of Illinois. You have won a $300 Amazon gift card. Congrats. Now let's give away those 2 AirPod Max headphones. That sounds very nice and cushy. I could use one of those. All right, Caleb McDaniel of Michigan. Caleb McDaniel of Michigan, and Tak Mihara of Hawaii. Tak Miyahara of Hawaii. Wow, you get to live in Hawaii and you get an AirPod Max headphone. That's a good day for you, Tak. All right, well, congratulations to all of our winners. Now, we will follow up with all of you after we wrap. And for anyone feeling a little panicky, there are still more chances to win, so stay tuned. Also, I will read all the prize winners out at the end, so don't worry if you've missed some of the list. I will make sure I summarize. But we are going to keep moving things along here because we have even more awesome than the prizes. I know you thought that was exciting. It's about to get even more exciting. We are going to be talking with CrowdStrike. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to our next awesome presenter on the summit. Here today with us is Chris Bowie, Product Marketing Manager. Chris, I have to say, I always love the CrowdStrike presentations. You guys have such awesome content and the absolute most fun graphics. So I'm excited to see what's in store for us. I know we'll have a great time. Take it away, Chris.
Thank you. I hope I don't disappoint. That was a hell of an intro, so thank you so much. Also, some stellar prizes, so really excited for all those who are tuning in. Thanks, everyone, for taking the time to join the whole event today, and especially our session, Mastering the Future, Exploring the Evolving Landscape of MDR. I'm going to skip forward a couple slides. So as just mentioned, my name is Chris Bowie. I'm a Product Marketing Manager at CrowdStrike, and I'll be chatting to you all about the evolving threat landscape, challenges that organizations face today when thinking about securing their organization, and then just how managed detection and response and the future of MDR really fits into all of that. So as our world has become more and more digitally connected, and I'm sure that's something that you've heard a lot of in some reoccurring themes, the value of our networks and our data has really increased, in turn, unfortunately, attracting cybercrime. In addition, cybercriminals are updating their tactics, techniques, and procedures and modernizing the way that they're organized to achieve a scale that you just can't hide from anymore. It's no longer the unlucky few that are feeling the pain. Every single organization at one time or another is impacted by this modern threat landscape that's just evolving at an accelerated pace. And so where does that leave you? It really demands that you and the tools and services that you employ also have to accelerate their ability to respond. And as mentioned, we're constantly finding ourselves waking up to a new world. Something's changed. There's a new threat on the horizon. It used to be that it took days or weeks for an attacker to gain a foothold and do damage in an organization. But as threats become more sophisticated, and as you'd expect, and with attackers needing less and less time to gain access to your network and systems, it's really unacceptable to take days or hours to respond. And that time frame has really shrunk down from hours to hours, or minutes, which is really alarming. And to underscore the point here about attack sophistication, we at CrowdStrike, we have a global threat report that we publish annually, and in our most recent global threat report this year, we observed that 71% of attacks were actually malware-free, so primarily consisting of hands-on keyboard activity. And this was partly related to cybercriminals and their abuse of valid credentials to facilitate that access and really be persistent to gain access into victims' environments. And at the top of the graph, we've highlighted access brokers. For those of you not familiar with that concept, they are threat actors who require access to organizations and provide or sell this access to other cyber criminals, so including ransomware operators. And unfortunately, the popularity of their services increased in 2022, and we recorded that there were more than 2,500 ads for access identified, which was around a 112% increase year over year. And the thing with access brokers is that they're selling credentials at a low rate and providing that service to cyber criminals, which is alarming because previously cyber criminals used to have the skills themselves to acquire credentials, and now all they need are the funds to purchase them from these access brokers who are experts in this area. So the rise in broker activity, particularly alarming, because having access to valid credentials is really like giving someone the keys to your front door. An attacker with compromised credentials really has that free reign to move around an organization and carefully plan their attack before they strike. I know that lateral movement was mentioned in some previous presentations as well, and it is a real threat. And we have a bit of a motto at CrowdStrike, which is that you don't have a malware problem, you have an adversary problem. From our perspective, it's really important to think that way because getting into the head of the adversary or the cyber criminal, understanding their motivations, evolving tactics, that's really how we think you can proactively protect your environment. So when thinking about your adversary, typically there are 3 phases to an attack: targeting, exploitation, and capitalization as well. Targeting really relates to the actions that malicious actors might take to facilitate successful exploitation. So that could be phishing. With exploitation, that is more about the actions taken by malicious actors. And so that could be ransomware or credential theft. And then lastly, we have that capitalization, which is really speaking to the actions taken by threat actors to monetize those operations, like a ransomware payout, for example. So really those 3 elements make up the operational cycle of an attack. And as you can see here, each of these attack methods vary in difficulty, which just makes it harder for you all to know how long you have to stop an attacker in their tracks. Which is why we think every second counts in the fight against the adversary or cybercriminal, because as mentioned, they are getting faster, which means that your security teams or defenders must get quicker in detecting those threats. When we think about the threat landscape, it's also really critical to consider the metrics that illustrate the challenges that security teams might be facing on a daily basis. So again, a metric from our global threat report being e-crime breakout time, and that's defined as the time it takes an adversary to move laterally from an initially compromised host to another host within the victim environment. We discovered that the average breakout time declined from 98 minutes in 2021 to 84 minutes in 2022. And so by understanding how quickly it takes for a criminal to move laterally in your environment, and by responding within that breakout time window, your security teams can really minimize the costs and other damages caused by attackers. So those are some really critical metrics to consider when thinking about defending your organization against cyber attacks. And in order to keep up with the pace and sophistication of attacks, a mature security program is really one of the best ways to accomplish this. Unfortunately, and something that we hear a lot from customers, it can be a challenge for a variety of reasons. So whether that be the talent gap, and that's cited really as one of the largest struggles for organizations of all sizes, just mostly due to the high demand for cybersecurity talent, combined with a narrow pool of folks that actually have the desired skills. And then it's the struggle to hire those folks, train and retain, that really lends itself, unfortunately, to a shortage when it comes to security talent. And then thinking about threat complexity and sophistication, we've touched on this a little bit earlier, but threats are becoming more complex. So organizations might be left scrambling to adequately train their employees on the latest threat and attack methods, or are themselves struggling to know what's the latest adversary they need to keep watch for. And then finally, to top it off, according to a recent C-suite tech survey, it was reported that IT and security tends to slow down organizations in their decision-making process. So that might be the finding, evaluating, and implementing of new security tools, for example. That, for a lot of folks, especially if they're resource constrained, can be quite a time-consuming process. And I think the reason that probably is because the stakes are so high. If you're thinking about purchasing a new security product or service, you want to make sure that you're evaluating and purchasing the right one. It needs to be a good investment and one that will really keep your business secure. So that whole process can be quite complex. And without the skills in place and the awareness of the threat landscape and right technology, you could find yourself potentially vulnerable, which is not a state anyone wants to be in, really. So where does that leave us in the future state of cybersecurity, and where might you be looking to make your investments in the future? We do not have a crystal ball. We don't claim to have one, but based on strategic planning assumptions and analysts' analysis, the view is in that the next few years, more than 50% of organizations globally will be leveraging some kind of capability delivered by a managed detection and response provider or by managed security services. And why might that be the case? Well, I think one of the key reasons is that cyber attackers look to seek out and exploit vulnerabilities across industries and company sizes, and they do not discriminate. So as we saw earlier with the different attack methods, with attack sophistication advancing as well, and with the increased speed for adversaries to break out into your environment, being reactively notified of when an incident has occurred, whether that be through a partner or a product, that can really leave you in a reactive stance rather than a proactive one. So how can managed detection and response help and fit into that? Well, just a quick high-level overview of that. Managed detection and response can be used to detect, investigate, respond, and really alert you to unauthorized or suspicious activity by providing a team of experts that operate 24/7 globally. In addition, that team offers assurance that adversaries have not gained access with threat hunting as well, and by being able to track the latest TTPs. They can also typically recommend actions to improve your overall security posture as well. So imagine having that in your back pocket. That's a really valuable resource to have if you're not able to supply those skills in-house. So the key to an efficient and well-run security program, and a process that we've seen work really well, and actually a process that CrowdStrike pioneered, is the combination of people, process, and technology. So with people behind the keyboards of an attack, and that's most likely the case with a lot of e-crime, it's critical to include people to be a part of that solution as well. So studying attackers and their operations, like I said earlier, really getting into the head of the adversary. You can really learn a lot about their capabilities and intentions, as well as what data and assets they're looking to target. And then as a result, you can then build processes and build defenses and understand how to defeat them or defend against them. For some organizations, and there might be folks out there listening, you think, well, I already have an established security operations center, and that's great. For others who might not have that capability, an outsourced team of experts who protect your organization by doing that 24/7 monitoring, detecting, and investigating cyber threats and responding to them is really what's needed. So to see how we've arrived at managed detection and response today, and why the prediction is that 50% of organizations will be leveraging an MDR or MDR services in the coming years, it's important to set the context and understand that managed detection and response is about delivering depth in capabilities for customers. So there was a really natural progression from MSSPs to then managed detection and response, which really started taking hold in around the 2010s when EDR adoption was also on the rise. So for many, MDR was the natural next step after incident response as well, because companies are looking to improve their defenses after an attack or breach, and want to make sure that they're proactively defending against future threats. And also, while EDR was created to better protect endpoints and offered response capabilities, some organizations were still left in need of personnel resources to monitor those detections and take action, which they might not have had those capabilities available. So where does that leave us now? Well, as attack surfaces have expanded and as attack sophistication increases, the focus on endpoints alone is no longer sufficient. In our view, it's really essential to consider the full picture and ensure all areas of risk are covered. Especially for hybrid environments, security has to be thought of in a holistic way, and one that's informed by real-time threat intelligence and visibility, which is why we like to advocate for organizations to think like an attacker, examining their activity and techniques. And a big part of having that holistic protection is being able to collect security telemetry from endpoints, cloud workloads, identities, your network, email, for example, to enable that easier and faster investigation and threat hunting and response across your environment. Because having that holistic view across your environment is really what enables you to make sure that there's nothing lurking in the silos between systems or software. So as mentioned a little bit earlier, we like to think of security as a seamless union between technology and human expertise, process, and an organization's security team to really close the gap between detection and response and deliver the ultimate outcome, which for us is stopping breaches. And while we have been fully entrenched in incident response since our founding at CrowdStrike, we felt like there was an opportunity to deliver a service for customers that goes beyond templatized tickets and alerts to really provide those outcomes where we can give that 24/7 service that's proactive instead. And we felt by doing that, you need to put people in the center of monitoring your environment to handle that rapid and comprehensive response. A little background on Falcon Complete, which is our managed detection and response service at CrowdStrike. We offer CrowdStrike's elite team of security experts who operate around the clock globally to prevent and really eradicate threats across your environment. By design, our teams are meant to be up and running and operational in hours, not days or weeks. And we kind of pride ourselves in that near immediate time to value, which we can deliver to customers as well. To dive in a little bit more on this visual, if you kind of follow the graph from left to right, while some more traditional MDR or MSSP models do assist with device and log management, alert-based hunting and triage, some of these capabilities we would consider table stakes, and with Falcon Complete, we extend those capabilities to really integrate proactive threat intelligence as well, threat hunting, full cycle response and remediation. And what's meant by that last piece in particular, full cycle response and remediation, is that we don't simply alert our customers to an issue or an incident. The tactical remediation services we offer are designed to totally disrupt an attack and ensure that a customer's environment is fully restored without any re-imaging or downtime. I know that's a concern, and we've heard that a lot. You know, people want minimum impact to their end user and to their business, because let's be honest, that can be quite costly as well. So what are some benefits of managed detection and response broadly? And this is just generally speaking, being able to drive down risks in your environment by ensuring you're faster than the adversary, becoming operational fast, making sure that, you know, if you don't have a SOC or security process or team in place, being able to really add value and add capabilities to your IT team with turnkey security services can just make sure you're operational fast and already making bounds to protect your organization. That's huge. And then lastly, by opting to outsource or augment your teams with expertise from a trusted vendor of your choice, you can help address that skills gap that we mentioned earlier to ensure you have a team ready 24/7 who are equipped to manage the most complex environments and the evolving threat landscape as well. Thinking about the new frontier and with managed services and CrowdStrike managed services in particular, we extend our managed detection response capabilities across the Falcon platform and third-party vendors via our Crowd XDR Alliance. So if we were to go around the wheel here, starting with managed capabilities, I wanted to just share some specifics around how we approach MDR and XDR. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but our team is composed of seasoned security professionals. We do have a global footprint, and our team are experienced in incident handling, response, forensics, SOC analysis, IT administration, you name it. Our team has got the skills to get it done. We also deliver multi-domain threat analysis and investigation with those XDR integrations to ensure maximum visibility. And when thinking about hunting, by ensuring you have a human threat detection engine and threat hunting, you can really see and stop the most sophisticated hidden threats. So that's really huge as well. With triaging, we have native EDR and XDR detections, which are worked on by the Falcon Complete team. So they help ensure no alerts and detections go unanswered. Because that can be tricky. If you're only responding to critical or high alerts, there might be something that you're missing that's flying under the radar. And then with eradicating, when an intrusion is identified, the Falcon Complete team have the ability to act quickly and decisively to eradicate threats. So really by covering these four areas, we work to ensure that organizations get their desired outcomes, stay breach-free, and without the burden or overhead of managing an internal team or security response function of their own. So it's firmly of our opinion that if the solution can't keep up with the rate of evolution, then it might have shortfalls in keeping your organization safe as well. And then to really summarize our thoughts here and to focus on the outcomes that we deliver, Falcon Complete offers better protection with 24/7 focused expertise, better performance with rapid response at the endpoint, cloud workload, and identity layers, continuous management, optimization, and monitoring of the Falcon platform, and then that time to value. So onboarding, as Craig has mentioned, we provide full protection in an average of 10 days, reducing business disruption to users and internal employees, and then really instilling confidence to your execs or even your CISOs, just making sure that they feel that confidence that threats are handled completely and correctly. And without waxing lyrical too much, thanks all for sticking with us. Our mission is to stop breaches. So for every customer, we achieve this by acting as a trusted partner with our customers and really helping them solve their most difficult operational risks and challenges. We believe so strongly in this that we back it up with the industry's strongest, in our opinion, breach prevention warranty. That I hope aside from learning a bit more about MDR and Falcon Complete MDR specifically during this session, that you've learned a bit more about emerging threats and understand why there was that future prediction, and understanding why organizations are putting their trust in managed detection and response and managed services. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for attending this session. With that, I think I'll turn it over to questions.
Yeah, awesome. That was such a great presentation, and definitely lived up to the expectations. I always love to hear from your crew. And I want to jump into some audience questions, but before we do, I'm just going to very quickly put up this poll for the audience here. What we're wondering is what additional information you would all like to get about the CrowdStrike solution. So there's lots of ways that we can follow up: data sheets, technical white papers, case studies, and I have a question about that one for you in just a second here, Chris. But so there's a couple of options here and ways that CrowdStrike can reach out to you. Please do take a moment now and just click on that poll. Let them know what information you would like to get. Your future self is going to thank you for that, because there's no way you're going to remember all the cool stuff we just heard. So get a little memory jog in the books there and just click on the poll. Chris, while they're doing that, you ready to dive into some Q&A?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. Well, I mentioned that we had a question about case studies, so I want to start with that. Elena here is wondering, does CrowdStrike have any published case studies of specific organizations or industries successfully deploying Falcon Complete and the benefits that were achieved by that implementation?
Yes, and Elena, really fantastic question. I would be happy to personally follow up with you with some examples of case studies. We do have several that span different industry verticals and different organization sizes, so perhaps you and I can connect to understand what type of use case might best resonate with you, but we have lots of really great customer case studies to share, so absolutely would be very happy to follow up on that.
Love that. Okay, Elena, you've got some follow-up coming your way. Let's get into this next question here. Is MDR only a good fit for organizations without a SOC or an in-house security team?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and it's one we do get quite a lot. But MDR services should really meet customers where they are. That's no matter of the size of the organization or IT team. From our experience, some customers don't have security personnel in-house at all, and what they want is just a totally hands-off, plug-and-play security operations team. They would just prefer to receive reports on updates on threats that have been handled and resolved without being directly involved. And we can absolutely do that. But for others that have an established SOC, we like to think of ourselves as just a force multiplier for those teams. So another set of eyes and ears, bringing our specialized expertise, knowledge of the Falcon platform, threat intelligence that we gather within that platform as well, to just make sure that you're getting the latest and greatest on attack methods, as well as all those benefits I mentioned earlier about continuous monitoring. So you can rest assured, if you're getting pings at the weekend, it'll just be saying, oh, we found something in your environment and it's been dealt with. It's not going to be a fire drill at 2 a.m. on a Saturday. So that's mine. We find customers find very comforting.
It's funny how often that preventing the 2 a.m. phone call comes up when we're talking about these peace of mind things. I think hopefully that's more and more moving to a thing of the past as we do find these wonderful solutions like you guys got. And on that note, and thinking about that kind of forward thinking, we cannot have a conversation about the future these days without talking about AI. It has come up so much already today, as it does every day these days. And so I have to ask, how does CrowdStrike integrate AI into its services and its technology? Can you expand on that a little bit for us, Chris?
Sure, and it's something good that you called it out because it's not something that I focus too much on in the presentation today. But at CrowdStrike, we deeply integrate AI across our platform and services. So, for example, in our next-gen antivirus solution and in our threat graph, which Falcon Complete leverages both of. On the topic of generative AI specifically, and I'm slightly pivoting on the question, but we recently announced Charlotte AI, which is super exciting. It's a generative AI analyst, and that uses telemetry from the Falcon platform so customers can ask Charlotte AI questions in real time. So to ask, pretty much anything, they can say, what are my cybersecurity performance metrics that I need to be looking into? Tell me about critical vulnerabilities specific to my environment. And they get those responses in real time to help them understand the context of a threat and get the information they need faster. So, while we have had a deep history of integrating AI in our services and platform, that latest innovation and latest announcement is something that I'm really excited to share.
That is exciting, and I think there's a lot of folks out there that will probably want to learn a little bit more about that. So, Chris, we'll clearly have to have you back for another webinar, but we're going to have to leave it there. So for today, before you leave us, Chris, if anyone is really excited about jumping in with CrowdStrike, they want to get rolling, what is their first step? What do they do to get started?
Yep, I think just visit crowdstrike.com and navigate to services, managed services, and look for Falcon Complete. On there, you can schedule a demo with us. Otherwise, I am on LinkedIn. You can find me under Chris Bowie. So if you have any questions and you think, no, I just want to reach out to Chris, it was specific to our presentation, then please feel free to do that. I'm a friendly face, I promise. So, website number one, please contact me.
I like that a lot. Who doesn't want to have another chat with you, Chris? It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for being here to talk to us today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for having me.
And if you're looking to get a little bit more information right away, head on over to that handout tab. Make sure you've got that CrowdStrike handout, Managed Detection and Response Buyer's Guide 2023. Really informative and obviously important thing to be thinking about. So please do go check that out. Be sure you've got that downloaded and saved to read after we wrap. While you guys are downloading that handout, asking your last questions, I do want to assure you, because I know there's a lot of questions we didn't get to, the CrowdStrike team is here on live chat. So they are answering some questions on live chat now. Anything we don't get to, they will get to you in follow-up. So keep those questions coming in and be sure you're clicking on that poll. I'm also going to give away another $300 Amazon gift card. I'll remind you that you do need to be here live and present at the summit in order to win. I feel like you're all saying that at home with me now because you've heard it so many times. I got to keep saying it, but if you are here and present, you are entered. And our very next winner is Jay Zemer of Michigan. Jay Zemer of Michigan, congratulations on your $300 Amazon gift card. We will follow up with you after we wrap. Now, folks, there's another chance to win. We've got another grand prize giveaway plus that $300 Amazon gift card at the end. Plus, we have that $50 Amazon gift card for the best question asked in each session. So keep those questions rolling in and you are entered. All right, well, folks, I don't know how this has happened. I honestly don't. I feel like we just got started and now here we are at our very last session on the virtual summit today. But don't worry, that's the bad news. The bad news is we're almost done. The good news is that we are wrapping up on a high note, I promise you, because here to bring us home in style is Lance Shaw, Director of Product Marketing at Nasuni. Lance, thank you so much for being here with us today on the summit. You are our grand finale, and I know it's going to be a great way to wrap up our day. So I'm going to hand things on over to you. Lance, take it away.
All right. Thank you so much. That has to be one of the best intros ever. So really, thank you. Hello, everybody. Great to be here. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Realize we're bringing it home. We're bringing the last session of the day. And, with that in mind, I was thinking, as we're thinking about what critical tools and services that are going to define IT through 2030, I want to leave you with, 3 things to take home, right? And kind of keep in mind after you leave this event today. Right, because you've seen a lot of sessions. That was a great session from CrowdStrike, fabulous. There's lots to think about here, right? And so as we wrap up and finish things up for the day, I want to leave you with 3 things to watch for. And we're going to talk about the file data storage space, right? And there's lots to consider here. And it turns out that pretty much every company on the planet has a large amount of file data to deal with, and how that evolves over the coming 6-7 years, 2030 is not that far away, right? It sounds far away, not. So we got to start thinking about it now, is my point. There's 3 things I want to share with you, right? We're going to these in each one of these in a little detail. First of all, the old way of doing things on separate platforms is going to go away. It's starting to go away from many companies now, but it's just really at the beginning of that evolution, where file data and object data will be deployed on a consolidated platform. The second thing to watch out for is that in the coming few years, almost all of you, dare I say, will have implemented a hybrid cloud file platform. We'll get into that a little bit and what it is. And third, and related to some of the exciting CrowdStrike technology that you just saw, is that enterprise storage itself will be involved as part of your multi-layered defense strategy related to cybersecurity. Whereas right now it's that's again, it's one of those things just starting, but there's going to be an evolution there to consider and for you to get ready for. So let's dive right in. First thing around object files and object data, if I could talk, that'd be great. Be deployed on a consolidated platform. Why do you care, right? Yeah, sure, Lance. We're gonna put it on a single platform. You care because our good old friends scale, performance, and security. Every organization cares about it. It's nothing new, but you're still dealing with explosive amounts of data. It's just out of control, and there's no sign of that stopping. Let's face it. You are never going to see a headline that says data is dropping in volume. There's less data this year than last year. That's never going to happen. That's a prediction for you. The other one is, you've got complex and costly data centers to worry about, and those costs certainly aren't going down, and your resources associated with that aren't going down. You've got an increasingly distributed workforce. I mean, let's face it, we're all distributed at this point in one way, shape, or form, in one way or another. And related to security, as was pointed out by Chris in the CrowdStrike session, it's just getting more aggressive. Right. I mean, the threats and the AI involvement, because, by the way, I have to say AI in the session, that's required. I've completed that task. But no, AI is great, and it's also allowing organizations to be very targeted and selective and more efficient about how they generate attacks. That's the downside, right? So when we think about that and all those areas, we've got to think about how we manage our data and where it lives and how it's protected. So this is a Gartner stat that I thought was interesting. In fact, I've got a couple of Gartner stats to back up these points. They recently published a report, saying, in the next few years, certainly in the next 4 or 5 years, right, depending on how you count your years, 70% of file and object data will be deployed on a consolidated unstructured data form, up from 35% today. That's a big jump, right? That's a big move, and there are a serious number of implications associated with that. And those are, and this is the why you care slide, right? Why would I ever do this? I'm fine with what I've got. No, you're actually not. First of all, obviously simplifying your data storage strategy is just with unfettered growth. You simply have to look at ways to simplify. You cannot continue if you're dealing with legacy NAS systems and that sort of thing. That eventually just is untenable, right? The other factor is speeding up your application workflows and how your applications operate, interact with the data, and leverage the appropriate protocols for those, right? More and more specific applications require S3, right, as a protocol, whereas, in the past they did not. You have to be able to really support the appropriate protocol for the application that's in use and leveraging your unstructured data. And related to simplifying your data strategy is getting rid of siloed storage products. I can't tell you how many companies I've talked to where it's like, yeah, I've got an ENC Isilon over here, I've got NetApp over here, there's just a SharePoint. I mean, they've got really what is a kind of results in a bit of a mess, right? And of course, it introduces a number of administrative challenges that you frankly would probably rather not deal with. So, and all of this, let's face it, none of this would be interesting at all if it didn't drive a faster, a higher return on your investment and a lower total cost of ownership, right? If those two aren't true, then this is not a trend, but it is. And this is what is going to drive organizations to move that direction. All right, so that's item 1 on our list of things related to file data storage and unstructured data. Let's take a look at the second one. This one's interesting, and it ties into the previous in that the majority of organizations will have implemented a hybrid cloud file platform in the coming years. And our friends at Gartner back that up with even a shorter time period. There's 20% of us doing it now. 60% of leaders will have implemented a hybrid cloud file deployment in the next 3 to 4, 4 years, let's call it, right? So that again, that is a significant jump, and there are some significant reasons why organizations are going to do that. So if you haven't been thinking in that direction, well, hey, listen, now's the time, right? This is why we're here. We're here to talk about trends and where things are going, and to give you a heads up if you're not already on the early edge of that curve. The implications of this, why do you care? It's really, there's a number of reasons here. And okay, there's a delay there. All right. 1 second. First I want to give you a little bit of an intro. Sorry, I'm moving around my slides here. I want to kind of introduce the idea of a hybrid cloud file data service, because this concept may be new to some folks. It's fundamentally allowing you to basically set up shop for all of your file data that you have in a variety of servers and services scattered across your environment, and bringing them into a single location and introducing a single namespace, right? So that a hybrid cloud system gives you that a single environment for management. It gives you edge performance and security, right? Because let's face it, if you're talking about strictly moving entirely, just putting everything in the cloud, many of your applications, many of your users may not always be able to deal with the latency associated with that, depending on the bandwidth available to their various region or their location, right? So a hybrid cloud model gives you just that. It's a hybrid environment, right? You're leveraging the cloud for centralized management and distribution, but you are delivering access via the edge, right? Via virtual machines or via edge devices that allow you that instant zero latency environment that your applications and your users demand. But meanwhile, using the cloud as that back end and sort of the master and the hub of the universe, very much a hub and spoke model as you think about how files are managed in your environment. And you can do this across a variety of cloud providers. Obviously, the big three are there, right? Most of you already have a relationship with one or more of these big cloud providers. Some of you will have private cloud environments or using other clouds. Regardless of that, that's all sort of behind the scenes, right? The idea is that you've got these local devices that give you extreme performance with all the services managed in the background. The way this drives down cost is related to how that data is stored. You're not simply just putting files in your typical file storage model. You're actually leveraging object storage on the back end for significant economies of scale, right? And so what happens when you do that? First of all, things get a lot simpler, right? There's no need to move data around physically because you need to deliver collaborative team access, right? You don't, or any kind of editing or what have you. You've got a single location, or at least, in many cases, you should have that, right? Because your unstructured data can be brought down into a single copy. That obviously helps in a couple different ways. That helps from a governance and compliance perspective, right? Around who can access the file. You're not copying data into another silo or some other environment where access rights have potentially significantly set up differently. That would be a bit of a problem, but it happens a lot. So you get that centralized management and security with having everything in a single environment. And you've got that single namespace, right? So everyone is going to the same location. You don't have to remember where things are located, which, as humans, we all need to, it's a lot simpler for us if we're beginning our look for any kind of data or accessing any files. You don't have to first think about where and then think about what it was, right? So you've got a single environment, much simpler administration, no more distributed administration models. That ultimately, as your organization grows, some of you out there I know are probably facing that right now. It's not uncommon. The last thing I'll leave you with in our short time together is another idea that's out there, is that the idea around enterprise storage addressing cybersecurity, right? And you might say to yourself, well, why do I need that? I've already got a security tool, and I've got antivirus tools, and I've got other things. Well, what we're seeing, and again, because let's face it, you'd be disappointed if I didn't have a Gartner quote, got you. They're interesting. They're pointing out that this one I thought was interesting because Gartner is pretty confident about this one, right? It's by 2028, 100% of the storage products will include cyber storage capabilities focused on active defense beyond recovery. This is detection at the storage location before it ever gets to any other environment. Only 10% of us are doing that now, right? So that is a massive jump, and this is definitely something you should be thinking about. And you think about that hub and spoke model, right? What if I could detect a threat as part of my storage environment out at the edge before it ever got anywhere else, and certainly before it got to the master copies in the cloud, right? That's worth a lot, and that's the kind of model that's coming to a theater near you. Is that an integration of threat detection and mitigation in storage, where your files are actually being accessed and located, and really what that ends up providing for you is a bit of an early warning system, right? It never gets to the cloud. It only happens at that edge device, and it's mitigated immediately, and so the blast radius goes way down in that kind of model. And of course, you integrate, with that early warning system, one of the first things you're going to do is be able to tie that into your SIEM or SOAR environment, right? Just like, the CrowdStrike presentation that we just saw, where I need those alerts. I need that event. I need to be able to take lots of automated actions that are set up for me to, automatically, if something happens, in the Singapore office, that the headquarters in LA immediately know about it, can take secondary action and remove people's access to Active Directory. All the things that happen or should happen, we'll say, when a threat happens. And this is all part of a strategy that I hope some of you have begun considering, but certainly you will soon if you have not. Is that sort of a defense in depth strategy? It's a multi-layered approach to resilience and cyber resilience. You've got your storage system involved. You've got your automated tools, your event management tools, your response tools. It's never just one tool, I guess, is the point there. And really that some of that approach, that strategy is key. The other kind of interesting thing about this environment, and this is related to an architecture of a hybrid cloud file data system, is that you don't have to rely on backups for ransomware recovery of file data, right? And hallelujah, that's a beautiful thing. Even that's something that I think a lot of us are trying to move away from, is the ability to simply leverage immutable backups off of object storage in the cloud to be able to just immediately go back to any point in time. And as part of that recovery strategy, it's much faster, and you don't have to rely on shall we say, legacy backup and recovery solutions. And that last point there, right, around an active defense approach, it will include data cyber storage to identify and protect and respond and recover from those unfortunate events. It's just going to start showing up, and you're going to need to be looking for storage solutions, file storage solutions that provide that as part of their offering and part of their package. I believe it's something that is occasionally available now, but as Gartner was indicating, whether 100% of us are going to have it, it's definitely something that you should expect and certainly plan for as you look at how you manage your data and how you scale and how you manage performance and access to all that data. I want to leave you with one thing as we're coming to the end of our time here. It's the quote of the day, right? Because hey, why not? This was, you can see, July 13th, just the other day. Phil Venables he's the CISO at Google Cloud. I love this quote. It's like a big part of security is modernizing away from old legacy infrastructures onto a new, more modern infrastructure where security is built in and not bolted on, right? And that typically is a cloud system. And that's exactly what this kind of hybrid model that we're talking with. These things are all tied together. The cyber storage, the hybrid cloud file model, and the consolidation of previously disparate platforms all comes together as the premier way and the best way, and the way you're probably going to ultimately, you certainly need to start planning for now, that you want to move to in terms of how you manage your file data. I thought it was just interesting. It's one of those things you're looking through your email in the morning, reading Forbes or whatever the article was, and like, you know what? That is perfectly said, because that's the way things are heading. Ladies and gentlemen, I would be remiss. We're talking about these trends, these things that are coming for us, right? And the evolution of file data storage. We're a long way from legacy NAS systems of the 2000s. We should be. Many of us may not be, but to move off of those and begin to leverage the cloud in a new way to take advantage of the greater efficiencies, the significant cost savings involved. All of this is, there are strong reasons to do this. As I said, this is coming to you in the next few years, and it's probably time to get on that train if you're not already, right? So that's why we're here, to talk about trends and things that are coming. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that this presentation is brought to you by the lovely folks at Nasuni.com. And Nasuni, as you might imagine, big surprise here, is already delivering everything that we talked about on these trends today, right? And it's a terrific solution for getting control of your data, consolidating your data, introducing built-in security, and a hybrid model that doesn't doesn't introduce any exceptional latency. It eliminates latency by leveraging edge devices in a hub and spoke model to be able to deliver the performance and the value and the savings and the support for global workflow processes, large files, small files, whatever the case may be, whatever your demands may be. So I certainly encourage you to come visit us at Nasuni.com. I sound like a used car salesman now, but hey, I had got to mention it, right? And I do appreciate all of you attending today. And with that, I think we're going to have a little bit of a survey. Am I right?
Yeah, we're going to do a quick poll and then some Q&A. Lance, I was laughing behind the scenes because I also sometimes when I forget, my voice drops into almost like, a friend of mine called it my flight attendant voice. Like, if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see that.
That's right.
It's easy to do sometimes. Yeah. Oh,
totally.
yeah. Well, Wednesday. All right, we are going to jump into some Q&A. I've got that poll question up on the screen for all of you right now, and what we want to know is what additional information you would like to get about the Nasuni solution. So as we were just talking about, there's been so many incredible learning opportunities in the session today, and there just aren't going to be space in your brain for everything, right? So if you click on the poll, what you're doing is letting yourself take a breather and let it all soak in, and then Nasuni is going to send you a little reminder by sending you a data sheet or a demo request or whatever it is that you've asked for, so you don't have to try to cram it all in right now. You can just click on that poll and let Nasuni follow up with you. While you guys are doing that, Lance and I are going to get into some questions because we've got a lot of great ones coming in, and I want to tell you, Lance, we got some high fives from the audience. You definitely did not fail to deliver on the grand finale vibe, so we appreciate that.
All right.
Let's see. Let's start with this one here. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to jump this one because you were just right at the end talking about Nasuni and kind of, what a great option it is. And we get this question a lot, and I want to make sure that we talk about it with Nasuni. What do you think are the key uniques for somebody that's considering working with Nasuni?
I'll tell you a couple things. First of all, is the unlimited. You can forget the idea of limits when it comes to scaling your environment. I mean, listen, we all evolved from the legacy storage systems, and you're so used to, I ran out of space, and I don't have I can't have that many files in a directory, and my volume size is exceeded. I've got to introduce this new, now I've got to go fire up something else. Those days are over. Yay. In that, there's really using an object storage model as we do. You're in all seriousness, you have an unlimited number of files, an unlimited number of versions, an unlimited number of immutable snapshots, and no limits on your directory size, your file size, volume size. It's a kind of a brave new world. So that is something that is fantastic. And we talked about the built-in threat mitigation response tying into SIEM systems like Microsoft Sentinel and the like, and that's another huge thing. I think. I mentioned performance, right? None of these technologies are going to be worth anything if users are complaining about speed, right? And or the applications are slow, and so that is a huge thing, and that is a significant difference in terms of the architecture that Nasuni is built on. I know this is going to sound a little bit biased, but it's pretty cool. It's unique, and it's I can't use some of the names, but there are some very large organizations and a whole lot of small and in-between companies leveraging Nasuni to deliver that scale, that performance, and the security associated with files. There's no way you have any conversation about files or access without having a conversation about security. So really, if I was going to nail it down to a couple things, those would be the key things that differentiate SUNY, but also obviously those are key things that you absolutely are looking at when you're evaluating a solution.
Actually, that plays in really well. We did get a question that came in, and it's a little bit of that higher level kind of question, but just, there's so much noise in the marketplace today in terms of new things coming out all the time, and then even solutions, having new features that they're releasing, and our audience was kind of wondering how they can keep up with all of this. And I think that it's a difficult thing these days, hey?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's interesting you say that because throughout the last 20, 30 years, not that I'm that old, of course, right? Yeah. But the last 20, 30 years, we've gotten on this cycle. We've gotten in the habit, I think, almost of like, well, I've had this storage system for 3 years or 5 years, time to upgrade, or maybe that contract comes around and your friendly EMC salesman comes by and with his hand out looking for a renewal. And sorry if anyone's from EMCs here, but that's the sort of the cycle you've gotten into. And some interesting unsolicited feedback from customers is sort of that we've had is that you make a move to SUNY and you are not going to have to do that again, right? You can break that cycle because like I said, you're leveraging the cloud, you're leveraging an environment. Unless you believe that Amazon and Microsoft and Google are going to go out of business and go away anytime soon, which I don't think so, right? Then it's kind of a comforting experience. You're freeing up resources because you're moving to a single namespace and a single environment, and there's this comfort of I don't have to do this again in 3 to 5 years, right? Thank God. So that is something to consider as you look at a solution for managing your file data going forward.
Actually, that's a perfect segue in because we did have someone who was asking about migration and really in particular said that they're feeling a little concerned about migrating. And in their case, they're saying, I have well over 100 terabytes in-house today. How do companies make the jump to the hybrid cloud and in particular without incurring downtime?
Yeah, that's a great question. One that certainly comes up, and the good news is there's a great answer. First of all, because downtime is unacceptable. If downtime was a large amount of downtime was part of this, it wouldn't work. The way. Well, I'll give you a story. We've had some customers. I've had multiple customers say. There's one story in particular that's coming to mind. They did their migration, and the way this works is not. You bring in the SUNY environment and you begin transferring your files sort of behind the scenes, it's not a you're not looking at a large amount of downtime. It all happens behind the scenes, and one day you flip a switch, right? And you move from point A to point B. And where this gentleman was confronted by somebody, a senior at his company, and says, when are we flipping that switch? When are we moving over to the SUNY? And his response was, we did that already. Right? It just happened. It's not a big deal.
You missed
right?
it.
yeah, exactly. And that's the way it should be, right? The end users should never know the difference. Your application should never know the difference. Your integrations, all that stuff, where you're accessing file data, fundamentally doesn't change, right? Because you're simply sort of this is oversimplifying, but you're simply changing. The M drive is now in a SUNY when it used to be something else, right? So it happens behind the scenes. We actually have, I don't have a slide on it, but we've only done this, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. But there's a whole set of services and solutions and teams that sort of guide you through the process and makes it very seamless to your end users and your senior executives.
Well, and those are the main parties that a lot of us are thinking about, right? The key stakeholders, who's using
That's
it,
right.
and who do you have to justify it to?
That's right. If the boss ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. That's true.
That's Oh, Lance, you got it. Well, boy, I wish we could keep going with this because I think there's a lot more to cover here and a lot more we could get into. But Lance, we'll have to bring you back on for another webinar because I would love to keep this conversation rolling. Before you leave us, though, for somebody out there that does want to get started, I mean, you mentioned the website. What do you recommend is kind of the first way to jump in and kind of dip a toe in the water, or hey, go all in and get started with Nasuni?
Well, I think, certainly it'd be great if you just went all in, and but that's not how it works, right? You want to, you certainly want to, obviously visiting our website, you can request demos. We have live access. If you have any questions, you can even drop me an email at lshaw@nasuni.com. I bet everybody would have guessed that. Nice short email address. Because there's a number of resources. I think that also, I think most organizations are going to want to think about how it relates to their vertical, to their industry, I should say, right? And whether you're in the energy sector, you're in telco, you're in financial services. We also have solutions and customer testimonials on our website. There's lots to learn about the value that a hybrid file data service platform like Nasuni can bring you. So I would encourage you to start there. And explore that site a little bit, and simply check in with us if you want a quick demo or an overview or anything like that. We can set that up very quickly for you.
I love that. All right. Well, lots of great ways to get started, lots of ways to continue the conversation, which obviously all of us now just want to keep chatting with you all day, Lance. But fortunately, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for coming to join us. Thank you for wrapping up our summit on such a wonderful note. This has been a lot of fun.
My pleasure. And thank you, everybody, for coming today. I really appreciate it.
All right, and to those of you who clicked on the poll, thank you to all of you. Please keep that up. Keep those answers coming in. Also, make sure that you visited our handout section if you haven't already done that. You want to make sure that you get the data sheet from Nasuni. This is Nasuni File Data Platform, exploring how you can make your files accessible from anywhere and protected from anything. Those are the two most important things, right? You can access them and they are safe and sound. It is a very quick and easy read, easy flow through, good information. So make sure that you've got that downloaded. Hold on to that. Save that for after we wrap, because we are reaching the end of our presentation here. So I want to make sure that you've got all of those handouts set aside and ready to look at this afternoon when you're thinking back through all the cool things that we learned. I want to mention that I got another question about the recordings. So just a reminder that we will send all the recordings out to all of you after we wrap. So be sure that you are keeping an eye out for that, because I know there was a lot that we covered here today. The presentations have really been incredible. The conversation has been really interesting and dynamic. And that's the cool thing when we're thinking with these kind of forward lenses, right? We really get to dive into some really interesting concepts, and I'm excited for all of you to spend some time following up on that after we wrap. I do want to make sure I give away our last prize before I get too off track, thanking you all for being here, which is where my brain was headed, because I'm just so grateful for everybody out there, and what a wonderful day we've had. But all right, let's do some prizes. So we're going to give away another $300 gift card and then an iPhone 14 Plus. I actually have two of those iPhone 14 Pluses, so stay tuned for that. And I'll remind you all that you do need to be here live and present at the summit. Okay, so our $300 Amazon gift card going to Alan Stoddart of Texas. Alan Stoddart of Texas. And then our two iPhone, or excuse me, that was one gift card going to Alan, and then we have two gift cards, boy, it's the end of the summit. Two phones. So an iPhone 14 Plus going to Daryl Eng of Texas, and an iPhone 14 Plus going to Matt Vogley of Wisconsin. The Wisconsin crew. All right, so another, I'm going to repeat that. That was an iPhone 14 Plus going to Daryl Eng of Texas, and an iPhone 14 Plus going to Matt Vogley of Wisconsin. All right, I'm going to read the entire list for you all. I had a couple of requests for that. So gift card number one going to Buck Thompson of Colorado. Number two to Raj Tandon of Georgia. Kindle Scribes going to Gina Limvu of California. Nate Oyama of New Jersey, and Parisa Esfahani of Texas. Then a gift card going to Justin Pat of Washington. Also to John Edelita of Texas. A gift card going to Santo Campione of Illinois. And then the AirPod Max headphones going to Caleb McDaniel of Michigan and Tak Miyahara of Hawaii. Hawaii, and then a gift card going to Jay Zemer of Michigan, a gift card to Alan Stoddart of Texas, and an iPhone 14 Plus going to Daryl Eng of Texas and Matt Vogley of Wisconsin. Whoo, that's a lot of great prizes and some big winners. Oh, I just saw a post from Matt. Congratulations, Matt. That's great. I love when we get to see our winners responding. Okay, awesome. So for Matt and for everyone else out there, we will be following up with you after we wrap. Also, don't forget that we have that Best Question gift card coming in, and we'll be looking at all of the questions asked in each one of our sessions, so stay tuned for that. All right, well, folks, with that, we're going to start bringing it on home. So if you are on the webinar today and you're thinking to yourself, this has been a great time, you would like to be a part of the fun, we would also like for you to be a part of the fun. We would also like to have a conversation with you. Myself, Keith, David, Scott, we're all here and waiting to chat with you. So if you would like to present on a future summit, EcoCast, or MegaCast, webinar, whatever you have in mind, reach out via email at connect@actualtechmedia.com. Okay, and that's going to bring us home, folks. That's it. That's all. That's what we've got today. Before you all leave, I do, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, want to extend a big thank you to our speakers today from Zerto, Flexential, Rubrik, Nutanix, Cisco, Access Security, CrowdStrike, and Nisuni. What an all-star cast that was. Thank you so much for making this summit possible. And on that note, a big thank you to all of you for attending, for asking some great questions. I have to say, I always have fun on the summits. I love when we get to get into some of these bigger, hierarching, boy, today's been a good language day. We're talking about pikes and pipes and arcs and arches, but however you see it, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed looking at some of these more forward-thinking ideas together. I think, it's really fun to get down into the weeds and get into the technical aspects, but it's also really cool to go big picture, to think ahead. And we've really covered it all today. So I don't know about you guys, but I have found it really exciting. I was thinking about it actually while we were chatting, especially about AI. It's a little bit like wiggling a tooth. When you were a kid and you had a loose tooth, it was kind of painful. It was also kind of fun. You kind of had to keep wiggling it. So for some of us, I think looking down and looking ahead and into the future can feel a bit scary. And for some people, it's a bit exciting. And sometimes it's that wiggly tooth combination of both. So either way, it's coming. And so we're going to start thinking about it now. Get ready for whatever comes our way. All right, and for those of you looking to keep the good time going, and I had a few people asking about upcoming sessions, Aman in particular, I saw some questions from you about how to keep posted on events coming from Actual Tech Media. Please do visit our website, actualtechmedia.com. Make sure that you are spending some time exploring our events calendar, and our very next session is on Thursday, July 20th, so that's tomorrow, and that's an EcoCast on the GCP ecosystem, tools and services that protect, manage, and improve your Google environment. So come chat with us on Thursday, July 20th at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific to chat a little bit more about the GCP ecosystem. This is a really interesting topic and obviously applies to a lot of us. So be sure that you sign up for that now. All right, well, folks, that's going to bring us on home today. That's it. That's all, as I said. And I'm really vibing with my Canadian sides today. That's it. That's all. All right. Well, thanks so much to all of you for joining us. It has been so much fun, as I said, chatting with you. And I hope we get to do it all again soon. So whether I see you on the EcoCast tomorrow or a webinar in the future, thank you and have an absolutely beautiful end to your day.